put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
I love the efficiency of bourbon.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
I would be doing so much better with the mic turned on. Yes, I'm well. Hey, I was going to ask you, it just popped in my head while I was listening to the intro. I have no idea why. Whenever we go to games, I always point out, oh, look at that. It's Bob Avellini. We saw a Bob Avellini jersey in Cleveland, right?
Right.
If you could wear, what would be the most, if you, like, pretend cost isn't an option, what would be the most obscure, like, name you would like, oh, that's the one I'm going with. If you were going to wear the jersey, no one would, like, oh, my God, I just saw blah, blah, blah. Like, who would you wear? Like, what would be the most obscure Bears jersey for you?
Do you know who Ronnie Bull is? Played for the Bears back in the Sayers era?
I don't. Wasn't watching yet.
That's obscure then. But you know your history really well.
Well, yeah, but I can't really follow until the late 70s.
Yeah, he was actually on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I've got that issue somewhere, not within arm's reach, but he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and I think there were really, really high expectations. He had a couple of good seasons with the Bears, but never, worthy of being on the cover. He was a running back.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
do you know his number?
Jesus, it's 39. Anyone in the chat care to help with that?
Curtis Enos wore 39 before going to 44.
Yeah, hold on a second. I got to double check that number. Ronnie Bull, running back out of Baylor.
Mike Singletary, Baylor.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. It's why are they showing me stuff about the Chicago Bulls? Ronnie Bull, Bears. Oh, because I wrote Ronnie Bull. 29 was his number.
29. Was that Tariq Cohen recently?
Yeah, it was, right? Because Cohen was 29 or 26.
I think it was 29. I think the most obscure one I would go with, I don't know why. Again, I don't know why I was thinking this, but how about a number 82, Alan Page?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
No one even knows that Page was a Bear anymore. It's just like he's only, granted, he was MVP of the league with the Vikings, but still.
Mm-hmm. He still had some juice left when he came to the Bears. Played, I think, 2 seasons or so, maybe 3. Yeah. James says Gary Fensick jersey all the way, good old number 45. Yeah. Cliff is saying that I just poured some Arte Nom 1146 Anejo tequila, breaking out the good stuff. Good for you, Cliff. I actually got a little Paloma here that I'm going to sip during the show and hopefully not have a stroke.
Is that part of the celebration for John Santucci's birthday?
Yeah, it's funny that you should say that. Happy birthday, Johnny Santucci. We love you, and we hope that you're having a great time with the family today. I had a little video here. It's just a little celebratory video for Tooch, who is now, I think, 87, is it?
Do you think at his age that he still looks forward to some fun adult time for his birthday?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I have it on good authority from the neighbors.
Good.
That he and the missus enjoy a good time.
Good for him.
I hope so, man. I hope everybody's having sex as long as it's consensual and you're emotionally equipped to handle the responsibilities of having sex. Go for it, man.
Or you could just rub him off like Johnny Depp's daughter.
Oh my gosh, we are going to talk about The Idol, starring Johnny Depp's daughter, whose name didn't write down, so it escapes me. You know her name off the top of your head?
Is it Lily?
Lily Depp, but there's a middle name in there somewhere.
Rose, maybe like Lily Rose Depp.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. But we'll be talking about her a little later. We're going to talk a bunch of bear stuff, of course. By the way, I was looking around for some stuff, and guess what I found? I found, in the opening video, I talk about the Greg Latta play.
Yeah, sure.
I found it. Howard Cosell.
Oh, we should see that.
Yeah, here it comes. This is actually 57 seconds long. So Howard Cosell during Monday Night Football would do highlights of the big games from the day before, and Kansas City at Chicago was one of them.
Chiefs visit the Bears, and the Chiefs storm to a 17-0 lead, but all day long.
Oh, there's Walter's big run.
And wall of Payton. This, a 15-yard
Nice.
run that has as much brilliance in it as any 90-yard touchdown dash you'll ever see. Payton, a marvelous running back, who is now the outstanding runner in the National Football League.
The good old
2 minutes
sweep.
left in the game. Kansas City leading 20-14. The Bears.
Look at that line.
And there goes Payton.
He's so
Look at his
fucking
stats
good.
on the game.
192 yards, 33 carries.
3 touchdowns.
The Chiefs responded. Eddie Podolak scored on a 14-yard run. With
Off the top of your head, do you know what game he
There
followed
it is.
this one
There
up
it is.
with?
This is the play. This is the
Okay.
play.
Who's covering Greg Latta? No one.
And Aldo's shitting somewhere.
And the Bears rescued the ball game.
Look at those bleachers.
27, an unbelievable finish.
Do you know what Walter's next game was?
The game.
Either you or me, but I can't hear you now. One of us is having problems.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can. The next game was the flu game against the Vikings the very next week.
Oh, how about that? So the 275 yards rushing, which was then an NFL record.
Yeah, and following that an enormous performance there, I mean, that was his MVP year, then, as evidenced by those 2 weeks.
Yeah, wow, man. That has to be the greatest 2-week stretch for any running back in NFL history. That would be cool to research that. Those 2 games back to back, holy shit, your name should be on a fucking monument.
Yeah.
Just for that.
I told you this in an audio message yesterday, but I didn't know this. I was watching an old Bears game from the Wani era, and they said that Wanstead was the blocking back for Dorsett when he won the Heisman Trophy at Pitt. I had no idea.
I remember that he was a fullback in college, but I had no idea that it was for Tony Dorsett.
Yeah, when he won the Heisman, I was like, well, holy shit, Wanstead. I didn't know that.
Cliff says that Chiefs Bears game was on his 16th birthday. So you were celebrating your 16th birthday, and I was shitting in my pants.
Did Cliff defecate too?
We all want to know.
I don't have a game where I shit on myself, but again, I've had games where I was getting blown when things are happening, and I know that for against the Chiefs in 2015 when Jay threw the game-winning touchdown to Forte, I cried. I have no idea why, but it made me cry when we won. I was so happy, man. I was just so fucking happy.
How many games were you having sex with? How many Bears games were on the TV or radio?
Not during my marriage, because she wouldn't watch any fucking sports with me.
Okay.
So, But before my marriage, it seemed to be like a thing that we did a lot, like me and my girlfriends or something. I remember one game specifically watching NBA, the Rockets and the Heat way back in like 03. And it went into like 2 or 3 overtimes, and eventually Francis had a big 3-pointer to win it in Miami, and I was getting blown like the whole like double, triple overtimes. I was like, you can't stop. Like, you're helping us, for the team.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I remember having like 3 hours, 4 hours of sex with my girlfriend when the Chicago Bulls were playing the Portland Trailblazers in the Western Conference final deciding game. And, back then I was a super horny teenager, but I remember feeling this huge sense of guilt that I was missing this important game in Bulls history and Chicago sports history. And I really wanted to stop having sex and watch the game, at least the fourth quarter. But my girlfriend at the time was so good, man. It was so juicy, and we just fucked through the entire game, the post game, I think, into primetime TV.
I thought you were talking about the 92 finals for a minute. I was like, well, look at you. I was like, man, give this man a standing ovation if he's doing that shit in 92 during the finals and fucking for 4 hours.
No, I wasn't. In the 92, I was, I think I beat off during halftime. Renewable says it's called multitasking.
Yeah.
That is good. What do I want to talk about now? What are we switching gears to? We're going to talk about the rules in a moment here, but I want to talk about, I put up this poll, and I want to get your opinion on this, Dan. Which of these pass catchers will have the most touchdown receptions for the Bears in 2023? Almost 68% said DJ Moore, 20% say Cole Kmet, 10% Chase Claypool, and only 2% said Darnell Mooney. I'm really surprised at that number with Darnell Mooney. Do people think that he's not going to be ready for the season? Because the Bears have told us that he's going to be ready for training camp.
That means nothing. The Bears have lied so many times because of injuries. Remember Kevin White,
Yes,
for example,
yes.
Khalil Mack and Lucas Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
They love to lie. They're like Hillary Clinton or something. Look, political, but Hillary has a track record of not telling the truth. But going back to her first lady days.
Yes. Well, Clinton, Trump, you name them. They're all liars to a degree, to a large degree in some cases, and to a small degree in other cases. I can't. Can you think of a politician off the top of your head that you would say this guy rarely lies? He tells it like
Carter.
Who?
Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
Carter was like building fucking houses for poor people at like 85 before he got too old. I mean, whether they like his politics or not, like Jimmy Carter's a fucking state. Like if there's a heaven, Jimmy Carter should be VIP. I mean, he and his wife both, I guess, are close to joining the afterlife and whatever you believe or don't believe. But that guy, like I said, was building houses with his bare hands in his 80s for poor people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if Jimmy Carter tells me some shit, I'm going to believe it.
I agree with that. That's a hands down winner. Good for you to think of that one right away. But I was just surprised at these numbers. The really super high expectations for DJ Moore. You know what? I wouldn't at all be surprised, and I'm not predicting this, but I wouldn't at all be surprised if DJ. The focus on DJ by opposing secondaries is going to be so hard. I think that's going to open up the field for Claypool and Kmet to score a lot of touchdowns. And one of those guys could potentially take that throne, for lack of a better way of putting it, and maybe even Darnell Mooney. Mooney is going to be ready for the season. I really believe it. And it's a contract year for him. I think Justin wants him to stick around, and they've got that connection. I wouldn't at all be surprised if Mooney had the most touchdown catches with, say, 8, and Claypool has 7, and Kmet has 7, and DJ Moore has 6, and the guys out of the I anticipate there being some surprises with this Bears passing game with some of the stats. And I can't wait for the fucking season, man.
I was thinking when you asked me, like, where would I go with that? Initially, I was going to say, no, I'm not going to vote DJ Moore because he's going to, if things are going well, he's going to get double teams and stuff, right? So they're going to take him out in that instance. And I was like, well, maybe I should say Claypool, but you know what? For the people that have criticized Chase, and it's rightfully so, like why does it take you a half a season to learn an offense? You fucking like, dude, show up and study. But so I think he'll be better this year, but based on last season's performance, maybe he doesn't deserve my vote. So I was going to go with Komet because like Komet at the very least last year was scoring touchdowns.
Yep. He was indeed. I think what he had, 7? Was it 7 or 9?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Cole is going to have a huge season. I think the addition of Robert Tonyan is going to free up Cole to run more positions. They're going to play that 2 tight end formation a lot. And while Tonyan is a good pass catcher, I still think Cole Kmet is the better. And Tonyan is as good a blocker as Cole Kmet. So why not keep Tonyan in?
Yeah.
You got that chemistry already rolling with Kmet and Fields. I could see Kmet maybe catching 10 touchdowns, going into double digits. Wouldn't that be sweet? Fuck.
It's just a quick segue, and we'll come straight back to Bears. I'm not trying to make this political, so if I don't know why the news I'm about to tell you would be politicized, but for some reason Republicans always get mad about it. I'm just telling you because I've got a friend that lives in Richmond. News sources have confirmed that 2 people are dead and 13 are injured at a fucking high school graduation, a fucking shooting at a high school graduation in Richmond, Virginia. Again, my friend Dan lives there. So again, I'm not trying to take it that way, but I don't know why I didn't say anything about guns. I didn't say take away guns. I didn't say fuck the NRA. I just said the news, but still someone Republican will be like, oh, fuck that. I don't know why they get so sensitive about it.
Well, they're concerned about their Second Amendment rights, and they don't want any restrictions put on them to get weapons. The concern, of course, is these automatic weapons that shoot off big time bullets, and create so much destruction. Cliff wants to know, what about gangbangers, Dan? Could they have been maybe gangbangers, as opposed to maybe right-wing extremists or whatever?
I didn't say they were right-wingers. I said that right-wingers get mad whenever you talk about the story.
Yes.
I don't know. I have no idea who's responsible for it. I'm not painting that with anybody. And God, I see. I don't want to paint Cliff with this. I was like, does gangbangers, is that trying to say, well, is it black people? I don't know. Cliff's not a racist. I'm not calling Cliff a racist. I just didn't know how to interpret what he was asking me. I don't know who's responsible. It could be a fucking bomb-throwing left-winger for all I know. All I did was read a headline.
Cliff is saying news is news. Only thing that stops a psycho shooter is a law-abiding guy with a gun. I disagree with that, but because we've seen that happen. Down in Uvalde, there is a police officer, good guy with a gun, right? Didn't dare go in. Didn't go in to help save those kids, and now he's facing a lifetime in jail. So, and you know what? I don't like the idea of everybody carrying guns. What happens? There's a shooting. There's one bad guy with a gun, right? And now there's 4 good guys with a gun shooting, trying to put down this bad guy with a gun, and the cops show up. They don't know who the fuck is the good guy. Isn't that chaos?
It is.
I don't understand that. I really don't understand that.
I mean, we've seen 12-year-old kids killed at a park because they had a toy gun, and the police allegedly couldn't discern. And I'm not police bashing. I have 2 really good friends that are officers. I'm just 3 friends that are officers. But if they can't discern if a child has a toy gun, how could they discern who's not the shooter if like 12 people are armed and shooting?
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't want to talk about politics. I just wanted, the story came to my phone. So.
Cliff says many people carry in Florida, and it works. More self-responsibility. Jesus, come on, Cliff.
That's why they told minorities not to go down there now.
What is it? The sun? Is that what creates this self-responsibility? Come on. I don't buy that. But with all due respect, Cliff, that's not. You're saying there's the people in Florida have more self-responsibility than the people in Texas because they have similar gun laws. I don't buy that. Come on. Jeez.
Wasn't
all right.
George Zimmerman in Florida?
Yes, exactly. Good point.
Let's not go there.
All right, no more of that. But our thoughts are with the people down in Richmond, and we hope that whatever was the cause, we hope that it's remedied soon. And I think we're all in agreement, whether it's people.
The asshole needs to be captured.
Yes, whether it's people in the right, left, or middle, we all agree that gun violence is a problem in this country. Let's all try to get to a solution to that problem as quickly as possible, because this is getting really bad. All right, so we talked about. Let's talk about the. I gotta share this one thing with you because it's been fucking bothering me for such a long time. And I tend to have the TV on where I'm working, and of course, I watch sports and stuff. And there's just one commercial that is popping up over and over and over again. I wonder if you've seen it. That is just irritating the shit out of me, and I'm gonna play it for you.
We talking about cash backing, not a game. Not a game.
We talking about cash back.
We talking about cash backing.
We're not talking about practice.
No, we talking about cash backing.
We talking about cash back.
We talking about cash back.
Not a game.
We've been talking about practice for too long.
Word.
No practice. We talking about cash backing.
We talking about cash back.
I mean, we not talking about a game.
Cash back like a pro. With Chase Freedom Unlimited.
Do you find that commercial? Do you find that commercial as annoying as I do?
I really strongly hate Kevin Hart's stand-up and everything Kevin Hart does. It's ironic you went to AI because he's from that area, Richmond, or not specifically Richmond. I think he was from like Newport News, maybe somewhere in Virginia. Mm-hmm. But either way, that's his backyard. But Iverson joking about practice, even if it's played out, that kind of makes me laugh. And I don't mind Steph Curry. I don't like Kevin Hart at all. But there's actually the commercial that was annoying me, and it wasn't because I like Steph, but I hate that fucking Subway commercial with Steph and Tony Romo where they're talking about the subs and the legendary class of 2022 draft, the new subs or whatever. I hate that commercial. Have you seen that one?
Yes, I have. I hate it.
Oh, God.
The problem, though, I have with the Kevin Hart thing is, Kevin Hart can get a little irritating when he does that shtick and he's just screaming and stuff. So that's one reason. Plus the practice thing. Come on, that's so fucking worn out.
It is.
It's like, can't you come up with a good idea, a new idea? And then it took me like 10 times to maybe because I'm stupid. But it took me 10 times to finally realize that's Allen Iverson because he looks like, Dr. Dre or some other guy
He's
who
put
was
a lot of weight, if that's what you were saying in his face.
Yes. So I had no idea it was Iverson. And so I'm wondering who the fuck is that? But stupid me, I should have immediately guessed that it was Iverson. But I think Cliff is trying to piss me off. Now, look at what he writes. Florida is much less racist than Chicago. Come on, Cliff. We don't have a fucking governor here that is trying to do away with African-American history in public schools and in colleges. The teaching of slavery in this country, he wants to whitewash that. You can't even talk about slavery. That's a racist move by your governor because kids are going to be offended if they hear that white people had black people as slaves. He's passed that into law. He has signed that into law. That is a fucking ultimate racist move. So please, Cliff, don't come at me with that bullshit. That's just stupid, man.
No comment. No comment.
So Cliff says, I don't bring up politics, but if you guys do, I try to correct some of your mistakes. I don't know where I made a mistake.
Was the fucking headline for the shooting. That's all I said. I never even said that the shooter was aligned on the left or the right.
So DeSantis is trying to do away with progressive agenda that is bullshit. Why is it bullshit to not share the true history of this country and the mistakes that were made in the past? Why is that a progressive agenda? Why is the truth harmful to people? Why shouldn't we be teaching this in schools?
Can I along the same point of what you're making? And I'm getting involved now. I'm here. I'm fucking here. I hate arguing, but okay. Oh God. Okay. So it just juxtapose this. All right. You know who Roger Waters is from Pink Floyd, right?
Yes.
He is in trouble now, allegedly being investigated in Germany. Now, Germany, you know, they've got a bad history. They've started 2 world wars. You're familiar with that. They invaded Poland twice, or come into Russia twice through Poland. Okay, so, but even the Germans are like, look, if you come over here and you say the Holocaust isn't real, or you have SS or swastikas, you could be charged. So allegedly, Roger Waters was wearing a bunch of pro-German SS shit at his show. And the Germans aren't having that shit. They're like, fuck him, man. He's not allowed back in our country if he's convicted of doing this. So the point is, the Germans, who have a bad history on the politicals, they're not running from it. They're like, fuck it. This is our history, but you can't come here and say the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean,
but on the flip side, DeSantis is saying, like, you can come here and act like slavery didn't happen at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? Say the Germans are just keeping it real, you know?
Mm-hmm. Cliff says, watch some historical videos on racism. Many facts are ignored, but because they don't fit the narrative. Well, share one with me, Cliff, and help me, or share a historical video on racism that I should watch that will help me better understand your point of view on racism. I'm all open to trying to better understand where you're coming from and where DeSantis is coming from and so forth. And, you know, I'm frankly, Cliff, a little bit offended when you say that I'm watching media that is brainwashing me. I'm smart enough. You know, I'm stupid for a lot of things, like my mom used to tell me, you're so stupid for some things, but so smart for others. Well, I'm smart enough to know when some people are not telling me the truth. I'm smart enough to know when people are telling me the truth, and I'm a critical thinker. Anything that's thrown at me, I am going to double check, triple check, and know that it is correct. I've been burned before. I've you know, in the past, I've tweeted out a couple of things that I should have double checked, and fuck, man, I sent something out that wasn't. I work really, really hard. Come from the field of journalism where you've got to double check your sources and who wrote that, you know, what are their stances on other things and stuff. So, you know, that's important to me. So I don't like being accused of being brainwashed. And Dan lives in West Virginia. Every time he turns on the TV there, I'm assuming, Dan, speak for yourself, but it's a lot of right-wing stuff, right?
Yeah. And I was just thinking, because of our age difference, I'm sure you can remember, and I don't mean this as a slight, but what were you in, like 4th grade when the desegregation shit really hits hard in like 70, where like Nixon's like, no, Brown versus Board of Education was adjudicated a decade plus ago. Now, we have to enforce this shit now. So like Walter Payton always talked about how he was like the figurehead to help bring the white athletes and black athletes together in Mississippi. Because that's what did it, was sports. That's the only thing that would unite both races at the time.
Absolutely.
So the point is, at least being from a Midwestern point, are you still in New York by that point, or are you in Illinois?
Illinois.
Well, so you're not seeing it like at Selma, Alabama, but like you lived through the shit. I mean, it's not like we're brainwashed. I wasn't alive yet, but fuck, I know what's going on in the world from history. Like civil rights is only, you know, in the last generation. So I don't know how that's like brainwashing me just because I know the history of the fucking country.
Yeah, I was in a debate with a friend of mine who's a conservative. We were having some drinks after a round of golf, and you know, we start talking about the African American situation, and he says, you know, slavery. That shit was over with 89 years ago. And I told him, dude, you're about my age. When you were born, black people did not have the same rights as you and other white people. So this is in our lifetime that we have lived through discrimination. We have lived through laws.
Water fountains.
Exactly.
I mean, water fountains. We can't drink from the same fountain. I mean, my mom would tell me, because my grandfather was a coal miner. So they would sometimes have to leave West Virginia because they got laid off. And she said that, like, when she lived in Georgia, now again, is this part true? I don't know. It's what my mother told me. She said when she couldn't believe when she was in Georgia that in the middle 60s, if a black man was walking down the road, he was not supposed to look a white woman in the eyes or it would be a misdemeanor in the town that they were in. That they could be charged for just hitting on white women. Come on, man. I mean, but I know we're trying to talk Bears, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean,
this conversation isn't like I was brainwashed. Like this should happen here.
And Joe says a gun is just a tool. If someone wants to hurt someone, they will find a way to do it. Yeah, that's totally true, Joe. But wouldn't you rather that person have access to a knife as opposed to an automatic weapon that shoots off 50 rounds in a minute or whatever it is, that has ammunition that will tear up the body of a child and leave it unrecognizable? A child, and kill so many people in an instant like that? That's the question that this country is facing. We had a ban on automatic weapons for several years, and it was lifted. I forgot what administration.
That was W. Bush, our boy George W. Bush, who let that happen.
And so we've allowed the weapons manufacturers to just focus on profit and not people. There was an interesting article by a former executive vice president for one of the weapons manufacturers, and he said that there was a covenant by all of the gun manufacturers years ago that they knew they had a sacred responsibility to be careful about that careful balance between making weapons for the general public and also making weapons that were too dangerous for the general public. Well, the AR-15, all these automatic rifles, and I know AR doesn't stand for automatic rifles, but that has ruined it. And now everybody, not only in the weapons, but every corporation now is just focused on profit. And that is clearly creating a lot of problems in our country.
When the NRA had their big gun convention this year, this is the irony of ironies. So they had their convention where everyone comes, whether that means you're there to be a gun dealer or you're just a guy that wants to go there because you get off buying weapons. They didn't allow guns into the convention for the first time ever, from what I read. So, the irony of ironies, the gun place is like, I don't know, guns are a little bit they're not really safe. So they're not welcome in here today, but right. You can take them and go kill whomever you want at a school. Go shoot up a school.
And to answer what Cliff is saying here, people in Europe and England and so forth, they look at us and they say, you guys are fucking crazy. Tourism is down because Europeans are afraid to travel here. South Americans are afraid to travel here because of all the gun deaths, because of automatic weapons being available. So, I know Chris Watts listens to this show on demand. He's probably in his third wet dream by now. Leave a comment, Chris, and let us know what the opinion is about Americans and its gun culture.
Chris is coming here to fuck our women. We were talking about that last night. Chris Watts, honey potting the honey bears.
I love
Throwing his uncircumcised member to all the hoes. I don't know if he's uncircumcised, Chris. I apologize for assuming that you're uncircumcised.
I love it.
But I feel like that's gonna be so fun. I no disrespect to Dan. I love the other Dan. I love his wife, but he's gonna be. I just thought it'd be like a sitcom if Chris came here to his first time to see the Bears game in Chicago. And he's staying with Dan, and they're like, "Oh, Chris, you can't fuck Aunt Tootie or whoever I don't know why I went with the facts of life, Tootie." And he is just throwing it down on some of the women, the family members. Dan's probably this is not funny, but the idea of it to me is very funny. I can see Chris being like a Austin Powers kind of ladies man,
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Chris Watts is a member of the Barfly Tailgate Show that's on Sundays, regularly every Sunday during the Bear season and some special shows during the off season. And he's coming to the United States for the very first time, coming to Chicago to witness his first Bears game, and he's doing that through the kind heart of Mr. Shorty of Bears Country Podcast, who prepared this promotion that I'll play for you. It has a website that you can go and share $5, $10 to pay for Chris's expenses.
Chris seems like a. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please. No. I was just going to say, send a few bucks. We'll pay for a beer on you for Chris. He's going to be here. What'd you say, Dan? Like 10 days or 2 weeks?
Yeah, he's going to watch the Minnesota game in week 6 and stick around because presumably the barroom event will be the Saturday before the Raiders game. And he's going to go to the Raiders game too. I was just going to say, doesn't Chris seem like a kind of guy that would kick somebody's ass in a movie at a pub over soccer?
Yes.
Like his team lost and he just destroyed a motherfucker in the bar and beat his ass and then was like drinking a big pint of beer at the same time.
I love it when on the Barfly Tailgate show, he got into an argument with Berlissimo. Berlissimo was in the chat, and both of them are from England. And they started going at him. Berlissimo said, something that offended Chris regarding football knowledge. And then Chris, I wish I could do a good Chris Watts imitation because this would be really funny. But it said, I'll fucking kick your ass. I'll take some of my boys down there and we'll kick your fucking ass. I know where you live, barely. Wow. I should have that video ready for. I'll try to have it ready for next week.
They call him a wanker.
Yeah, you call him a wanker.
But in a lot, I could ask Chris this. In a lot of movies that are British, especially in modern day, I don't mean like some fucking like Monty Python or some shit, but in modern movies, if they're heavily British, they use the word cunt a lot in British films. Yeah. So it's like they call people either cunt or wankers. So which is worse? Is a wanker worse in that vernacular than cunt, or is it the other way around?
I don't know, but that reminds me of something I wanted to bring up with you. What's the deal with the word moist? Now women are becoming offended when you use the word moist. Oh, don't say that. That's gross. What's gross about moist? I don't understand that.
If you run into that? I'm going to sound like a fucking dirty pervert, but I liked moist vagina on my face.
I like it on my face, on my dick, everywhere.
Exactly.
So I don't understand. I mean, language is so fucking frustrating sometimes.
Doesn't moist seem more classy than saying I like wet pussy? I mean, if you say moist, it sounds a little bit more classy to me.
Look, Cliff and I agree on moist. God bless you, kid. I'll give you a moist kiss.
Which I received from the other Dan after the game last year, which I still haven't gotten over. I made him kissing me on the face with a beard.
That's right. All right, let's take a quick look at the weather in the Chicagoland area. 77 degrees. There was a little precipitation up here in Arlington Heights, but the next several days, beautiful temperatures, 75, 76, 82, 84, 75 are the highs for all of those days. It's going to be beautiful. What do you think about the weather here in Chicago, Dan?
I'm sorry, I was looking at her thighs. I don't mean to objectify her, but I think that's the point.
That's not the point.
Not from you, but I think that's the point. It's not like she's wearing a Hillary Clinton, like another Hillary reference, pantsuit. She looks like she's going to the fucking beach or something.
Renewable loved her leg.
Be moist.
Yes, exactly. Retro says episode 2 of the Dan Aguirre documentary, Moist? When a woman is dead and she's not so dried out, Dan still fucks. Oh, come on, Retro. Come on, Retro.
By the way, I'll take that as funny.
Yeah. By the way, people were commenting on the picture that I used for you, and that you had the same reaction. So I created that one. So every time we're talking about sex, I'll put that one over your face. Whenever you're angry about talking about Aaron Rodgers, I'll put that one. When the Bears fuck up, on 3rd and 3, and or 3rd and 1, and they run it out of the shotgun position, I'll put that one.
Or how about when Khalil Mack was named the 66th best Bear of all time in the 100 catalog?
That's right. That's the frustrating.
Oh,
man.
my God. Who's writing this shit?
Dan Pompey, who got Brian Urlacher into the Hall of Fame.
That's me after I just came, I guess.
Oh, yeah. That was, by the way, Sue, what the hell's her name? Sue Almeida. And you can find her work on YouTube and Instagram. I think the Instagram was on the screen there. There it is. Wow. She's really not on Twitter. But isn't it amazing that, this culture would say, yeah, or whether ladies wearing short shorts, hot pants, and
she got to shave before she leaves the house wearing that outfit. And I don't mean her legs.
Do you see camel toe there? I think I see.
Yes, I do. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't look at it that close. I was actually looking at the weather.
God.
God bless you, Susie.
The flip side would be so horrible if the guy was wearing something similar to that.
That's right. I used to, when I worked at Channel 2, I used to have these debates with some of the women producers and production staff people, because there was this picture of some of the female anchors, and they were all shot with hazy photography, to make them look more attractive. And I said, why is that necessary? I mean, they're news anchors. It's supposed to be about the truth. Why are we trying to disguise who they are? The filters should be the same as we have on politicians, on male anchors, on people of the news. And boy, oh boy, did I open up a can of worms there. Oh, you're just being sexist. Why shouldn't a woman look her best and stuff? I'm like, because these women are in the truth business. And if they're posting pictures that don't accurately represent what they look like, isn't that like a betrayal of trust? And I'm all for women. I hope that women run the world someday. It'll be a lot fucking better off than what us men have done. But certain opinions that I have about women are contrary to, I guess, what feminists say or just plain women. And I get burned for that every now. So I'm expecting more hate mail any second now. All right. You want to talk about NFL rules?
Yeah, because the more we talk, anything that can be deemed political, we're going to get bomb threats before this is over with. So.
That's right. From gangbangers.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Cliff. All right. So the big rule, of course, is this kickoff thing. And the reason we're doing this today is because Dan sent it to me, the explanation of the rule, a few days ago. I go, yeah, we should probably talk more about this on this upcoming show and look at all of the rules that they've introduced. So the kickoff rule, and it's, I'm not going to read all this, should I? But if it's a fair catch kick, well, I got to read it. After a fair catch is made or is awarded as the result of a fair catch interference, the receiving team has the option of putting the ball in play by either a fair catch kick, drop kick, or a place kick without a tee from the spot of the catch, or the succeeding spot after enforcement of any applicable penalties or rules, or B, snap from the spot of the catch or the succeeding spot after enforcement of any applicable penalties, unless a player on the receiving team makes a fair catch of a free kick behind the receiving team's 25-yard line, in which case the ball will be put in play on the 25-yard line.
But he can't do that from the 25, though. It has to be from the 24 and back, right, to call for the fair catch?
Correcto. And so a lot of people are asking why. This is stupid. And this is what Roger Goodell said.
The data is very clear about the higher rate of injury on that play. We've been talking about for several years. We have not made a lot of progress on this play. This is a step that we think was appropriate to address that. And so There'll be a lot more work to be done about how we continue to evolve going forward. Can we continue to keep this play in an exciting way, but more importantly, a safe way, and try to do that? There's a lot of work that's going to need to be done. The coach is going to be part of that. It's been used in the NCAA for 12 years. We have not seen that, but I'll remind you also it's in for 1 year for a reason. You evaluate that and you see what the impact is.
Yeah, I don't mind the rule so much if it's about player safety, but I'd love to see the data. I frankly, I don't, based on just, this is of course non-scientific, but based upon what I see, I don't see a lot of concussions happen on kickoffs. Is the data really that conclusive that you got to make some rule changes? What do you think, Dan?
Well, they don't allow you to run down with the wedge and shit anymore. I mean,
Right.
I can't imagine. Like I could see that being an issue in 1995. But in 2025, or we're almost there, 30 years later, the rules aren't such. I just at some point you have to say that it's not touch football.
Mm-hmm.
People get tackled. I mean, so is the ball could still be, you could still have a turnover, right? Like let's say the team kicks it off and the ball hits the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But what if the receiver he still has to make the catch is what I'm saying. So if it hits the ground and the kicking team gets it, it's still a turnover. Is that right? Or no? Not on a kickoff. Like, if you kick it, the ball is supposedly live on a kickoff versus a punt where you can let it roll for 10, 15 yards but on a kickoff, the ball's live and conceivably could be a turnover if the receiving team doesn't get it.
Right.
But if they call for the fair catch, they still have to catch it, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Like you can't just like throw your hand up on the other hash mark and then kill the ball. Is what I'm saying. It's still live.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's okay, I guess.
Which, and I don't like the rule where if the ball is kicked into the end zone, you don't have to catch it now. It can just bounce and then the play is dead. I understand that they changed that rule where you had to catch the ball and put a knee down. I understand why they changed that again because of player safety, but I think, I don't know, man. I feel like you should still have to catch the ball in the end zone, put a knee down, and then mark the ball at the 20 or 25, because that's the game. I mean, it's these shortcuts in hockey. For those you guys who follow hockey, it's the same thing with ice hockey. Now, the icing penalty has been changed. I won't talk about hockey. Nobody here gives a fuck about hockey. But
I just don't understand hockey.
Cliff, I agree with Cliff on so many of his points here. He's talking about it's about a team's liability. These guys, the NFL owners, they're worried less about safety than they are about being sued, about their liability. They've got a business model that is based on violence, and they're trying to cover their asses now in certain ways. Let's listen to what Coach Eberflus and the special teams coach Highflower said about this new rule.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it'll change tactically what teams are going to do because the rule is in now. There's nothing you can do about it, but it will change. I think you'll get more squib kicks. I think you'll get more drop kicks, more drive kicks, those types of things, and make guys return it. And I suspect you'll see more returns than less. But that's just what I'm thinking right now. But we'll see what happens.
The rule is the rule. So before it, that's like water under the bridge now, honestly. Coach has kind of already spoken on it in terms of what he thinks is going to happen. We've discussed as a staff, what we think the rule is going to do in terms of us basically schematically planning for it. So that's really where we are on the situation right now. Look, health and safety is the number one priority for us, the NFL, for everyone. So Coach has kind of really hit on that already. At this point, what we're trying to do is trying to figure out strategically how we're going to attack the situation and what are the best ways to win the ball game. So that's where I'm at with everything. I don't think I'm going to lose a lot of sleep or gain a lot of sleep either way on it. I'm just ready to play ball on it, really. So I just know in our division, I think I mentioned this to you guys before, but in our division, all 4 teams finished in the top 5 in kickoff return. So, guy in Green Bay, he's bringing it out like 9 deep. He brought it out 9 deep against us, so it doesn't matter. So we got to be ready to play ball.
What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, it made me think when Patterson was here, man. It didn't matter. He would bring it out. It did not matter if there were 5 guys waiting on him. He was coming it out, and that's like our last Super Bowl. The most, again, indelible image is Hester's touchdown. And the only time it's ever been done to start a Super Bowl with the kickoff return for a touchdown in 57 games, it's only happened one time. So you don't want the new rule to take away something like Devin's return,
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting in that entire interview with Hightower, he was being so careful about what he was saying. And I bet you that they have been told by NFL communications, be careful what you say about this. We don't want it on the record that if somebody sues us, we don't want it on the record that somebody said this or somebody said that.
You can't say it's a dumb rule.
Yeah, exactly. You can't, but it was great what Eberflus said, because he actually basically said, the injuries might become more severe now because they're probably going to squib kick it and force teams to run it out. So we might see more returns, from a strategic standpoint. And for Goodell to say, this takes a team effort, Goodell, I don't know if it was included in the clip, but Goodell said at one point that, the coaches and special teams coaches have to work on this to make it more safe. He's basically telling them, don't fucking do the squib kick, man, please.
Is it just me, or did Goodell in that soundbite sound like he's like unwell or something? He sounded really old.
He did. He has sounded old the last couple times I've heard him, but I think he's doing really well because he's just about ready to sign like a $60 million a year contract. So I think he's fine.
Yeah, you could be as rich and proficient as like who was it? Steve McQueen that was desperately trying to get help from mesothelioma or whatever, and got killed and died from it. He sounds like a stroke victim or something to me. He sounds bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I know he's been the commissioner a while now. Like the Bears' last Super Bowl year was the first year he was commissioner following Paul Tagliabue.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. I back to this rule. Fuck Tagliabue or Goodell. If he dies, that's fine by me. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, real quick, and I'll bring politics up. His ex-wife used to work on Fox News, or his wife used to work with Fox News. She was with Shepard Smith, who I like so much during the day.
Yeah.
Her name was Jane Skinner.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was her maiden name, I guess, and she just kept it professionally. But that's still Goodell's wife. I was a big fan of Jane Skinner.
Yeah, and you're a big fan of Shepard Smith, who is unemployed right now, right?
Yeah, I don't know what Shep's doing. I mean, maybe he's one of these guys that's kind of the way we thought Tucker was going to do, because Tucker's debuted a show, I guess, on Twitter. But I guess where they cut his deal, but he still had money on it. So it's like they still owe him the rest of the contract.
Oh, good for him.
So he's getting paid just to sit at the house, as far as I understand.
Maybe he'll end up at CNN. CNN has been cutting a lot of staff people, many of them going to MSNBC, as CNN's efforts to try to be more down the middle of the road and gain.
It's too bad that they got rid of him, because they finally fired Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. So Shep would have been great for Meet the Press.
He would have been good. No doubt about it. All right. So in terms of this kickoff rule, 25-yard line, you think that's an advantage for the Bears or a disadvantage? I don't know yet. We'll just have to,
I think it's bad for the league. I think if it nullifies, if for some reason it brings all these extra kickoffs that, like he was intimating there. I'm not sure if that's true, but I mean, fuck, Eberflus knows more about football than I do. But if you're taking away the kickoff, you're taking away a really exciting play, or at least the potential of like a home run, to use an analogy. Like think about Hester against the Giants in 2006, when the Giants, Jay Feely missed a field goal and Devin caught it and just stood there for a split second, then took off running and went for like 109 yards. I mean, I think all of us watching it, and I didn't even know you yet, probably got the fuck out of our chair and had a big stiff fucking cock while we were watching it. It was amazing.
And nobody got hurt.
Nobody got hurt.
That's right. And 109 yards and nobody got hurt.
It was just an amazing play. And it's, I don't know. I'm just saying things like that. You don't want it to be taken out of the game, at least from a fan's perspective. But maybe it's easy for me to say that because I'm not the one getting concussed. But again, like you said, without the data, how do we know that that's even true?
Exactly. I want to see the fucking data. I want to see it. I'm going to dig around for it and see maybe it's published somewhere. All right. Some of the other rules. Go ahead.
Right. That's what he said. It's a 1-year trial right now.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and I guess he's right. The college football has had it for a few years, and you know, it's funny that I never noticed it, but I don't watch that much college football.
I don't watch college. Fuck college.
College
bores me to death.
What do you think of this rule change? They can now wear the number 0.
Yeah, and I knew this one. It always makes you think of Foster's team, the Raiders, where he's Ben Davidson, and Jim Otto was 00 famously.
Mm-hmm.
You know who 0 is for the Bears now?
I looked at the website. There wasn't anybody wearing 0, at least on the website.
I'm pretty sure that I saw Mooney said he was going to go to 0.
Oh, okay. That is cool.
Yeah. So it doesn't bother me. It's just, it's so strange that like 20 years ago, I can remember when Reggie Bush came into the league and he was number 5 at USC. Mm-hmm. And he tried to allow the league to let him to wear number 5. Mm-hmm. And they told him no. So he had to be 25 with the Saints. And then I can remember even Peyton Manning, the golden boy, wore some black high tops in tribute to Johnny Unitas, because of course they had a lineage with the Colts franchise, and got fined for it because the Colts were a quote white shoe team then. So like 20 years ago, like the numbers were all like really, really strict, and the shoes were strict, and that's kind of the Wild West now, man. Especially like corners don't wear the same socks a lot of times now. Mm-hmm. That would have been a fine 15, 20 years ago. Like, for example, think about the Bears road socks with the white and then the blue and the orange stripe. There'll be times you'll see, you look out there in one of our corners and just have all white or all black or whatever, and won't have the team socks on. Mm-hmm. Again, that's something just a generation ago was a fine.
Yep.
And so but the 0 is kind of dumb, like to not be able to use it. So I dig it. I like it.
What about 0-0? They have not allowed that yet, but
Jim Otto had it.
Yeah, but no one's wearing it now, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, why not? You know, I kind of like, I agree with Brady in the sense I liked wide receivers wearing, you know, the numbers 80 and stuff like that. When I don't really like seeing linebackers wear the number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like Brady was saying, it's so jarring to see a number like that. And he's played his whole career when it was somebody wearing 57 or 58 or 55 is now wearing the number 4. Like for you as a quarterback to assimilate that information, I guess the younger cats, it won't matter. But yeah, it is strange to me. And that started in college too, seeing like defensive ends wearing number 2. And
yep. They usually give it to special players, those single digit numbers.
I don't want to sound like the old guy saying get off my lawn and shit, but I kind of like the numbers the way they were. But I do like seeing 0 back.
People in the chat are rightly saying many teams are running out of numbers, the Bears being one of them. You know, the whole idea that somebody's wearing number 51 or some of these classic numbers is ridiculous to me.
Well, Jim Morrissey's the only one that wore 51 after Butkus, but go ahead.
Okay, but it's not retired yet, right? Butkus is
it's retired now. They let Morrissey do it. I don't know why. Because what was Morrissey, like a 9th round pick? He was able to do it, but no one else after him.
Okay, so like 99, Hampton's number is still in use.
Hampton's number is allowed to. Singletary for years, no one wore Mike's until Shea McClellan.
Right.
It's like Shea McClellan gets to wear Singletary's number?
Jesus Christ.
Shea McClellan? It's like having the fucking janitor at the high school, you know?
I'm shitting in my pants again, and it's not because of happiness. I got a solution to the problem. And I think I've brought it up before, and I think you poo-pooed it, but I'm going to make another case for it. I like the idea of introducing a letter and a number. So I would be G5 or Z7, you know, or wouldn't that open up all sorts of possibilities now. You've got you've got not an endless supply, but you've quadrupled the amount of numbers available now. Uniform.
It sounds like a Star Wars movie, though.
Cliff is right. He would want to be 1A. That's an awesome number. Cliff, penalty on Cliff Victoria for saying there are too many gangbangers using guns.
And don't use the word gay.
Number 1A.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah. That's the solution. It would look so cool. Would you buy a jersey of the Bears' next first round draft pick of somebody that you said, wow, it's going to be great, and his number was F7?
I mean, I don't want to play bingo here. I mean, but of course, if that's the way the league goes, I'm going to go that way. But I would prefer not. I mean, do you want your number 1 Justin Fields jersey, or like you said, G7 or whatever? That's a summit. That's President Reagan in Iceland talking to Gorbachev at the G7. Like, that's not a jersey.
Yeah, I mean, it would take some getting used to. James says I'm playing Battleship. I don't know. Foster says, where is Foster? KMA2 is my journey. Kiss my ass. I'm not saying 3 letters. It still has to be 2 digits, 2 characters. So it's a letter and a number. I just think it would be cool, because what else are you going to do? You could have 3 digits. You could have now 100 through 199, but that's going to take up so much space in the jersey. I would love for there to be a way to expand the amount of characters that represent the player on the jersey. That way you could retire more jerseys, because that's a special thing that teams should do. Are the Bears never going to retire another number again just because
Didn't
they're
they
running
say
out of
that?
Yes, they did.
After Ditka in 2013, I think they said they weren't going to be able to retire any more jerseys.
Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous to me. That is totally fucking ridiculous. Unless they figure out another way to honor these players, like if in the new stadium, if there is a new stadium now, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But if there's like a ring of honor in the stadium, then I could see maybe not retiring any more numbers.
Yeah, the Bears really need to do that anyway.
Yes.
Like the Cowboys hit that right so many years ago. The Cowboys were doing that, 40 years ago? With their retired players around Irving, Texas, and the old Dallas Stadium with the dome that was opened. What was the name of the stadium? Come on, Texas Stadium. It was Texas Stadium. Yeah,
yes, it was.
Yeah, they had the Ring of Honor there for years. Dallas had that right. I don't know why the Bears don't do that.
Well, it's the Bears, right? I mean, we're going to talk about how the Bears could potentially be screwing up this stadium situation in a second, but let's go through the rest of these rules real quickly. I think we're at this one, proposed by Houston. Expand the replays officials' jurisdiction to allow for review on failed 4th down attempts. I totally agree with this. The replay officials should have just more expanded jurisdiction on most plays. When it's fucking obvious that a play has been mishandled on the field by the on-field officials, the replay officials should step in and immediately fix it. And we've seen a lot of 4th down attempts where all of a sudden, it looks like he made it, and the fucking coach is afraid to throw the red flag, and all of a sudden the offense is on the field for the opposing team, and they get away with a free possession, so to speak.
As much as I agree with everything you're saying, they always find a way to fuck it up. Like go back to 2017 with Zach Miller's touchdown in New Orleans. And it was Al Riveron who was still trying to defend his call, like for the next season. He was still talking about it. And again, this is non-scientific, but if you would have interviewed 100 fans, not just Bear fans, but NFL fans, whether they were in the front office or just the dude would hold the fucking beer, like I'm telling you, at least 90 of those 100 would have said Zach Miller's play was a touchdown. Yep. And you got this fuck in the front office who gets to make the calls to affect people's championship aspirations, and he's the one getting it wrong. And for years they let that bum be the guy in New York making those calls. Like, I don't know if he's somebody's nephew or nepotism, like what got him his fucking job, but that guy was terrible, horrendous. I don't even know who the new guy is now. Thank God Al Riveron's gone, though. But
man, I'm with you.
Whoever it is, they'll probably fuck it up too, though.
Yep. That was definitely a touchdown. And you know what? I wouldn't have blamed the guy if he went on and said, this is a really, really difficult call to make, and phrase it that way. But he purposely was lying to try to make the officials look good. It was a terrible call. We knew it immediately in real time. And then when we saw it in replay, we knew it even more. And then for Al Riveron to basically spit as Zach Miller.
The man almost died on the field. They had to take veins from one leg and put them in the other leg to save his life. He never played again. Give the Bears credit. The next year they put him on the roster and paid him his salary because they knew that he was going to have to rehab for an entire year and they wanted him to have his insurance.
He still sticks around.
That was classy as fuck for the Bears to take care of him because he almost died in the Superdome. And for them to take that touchdown away from a man who literally almost died to make that touchdown, I mean, it's just amazing when even the Saints are like, wait, that's not a score? Come on, that's a score. Give it to him. He earned that. He almost died, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And again, that cost us everything at the time. The Bears, again, it was the John Fox era. He was almost out the door. But if they win that game, they're knocking at 500, and then maybe momentum takes you somewhere. I mean, I'm just saying that could have cost him his job. But ultimately what cost Fox was that play, in my opinion, you remember we were playing Green Bay and Benny Cunningham fumbled and he challenged it. And instead of like 1st and goal from the 2, they gave Green Bay the ball. Oh, you were at that game?
Yes.
Holy shit. That made Fox look like he was 205 years old. They're like, okay, he's got to go. They should have fired him after the game.
They should have. They should have fired him right then. During the replay.
Or even like Tressman should have been fired at halftime when they were down 42-0 up there.
I agree. All right, next rule proposed by the Chargers: make the adjustments of the play clock following an instant replay reversal consistent with other timing rules. This is just kind of small points department, I think, and most of the rest of these rules are. I don't think any one of us are going to notice this rule change when it's put into effect, but it does make sense that it's consistent with other time rules. Right? There's too many fucking differences of rules. The whole catch thing is the prime example. The possession of the football is different for a running back than it is a player running the football than it is for a player catching the football. That's ridiculous. It should be the same rule. All right, next one is change the definition of a launch to leaving one or both feet. So before
this is one of those college rules that I don't like.
Okay,
where they were basically telling a safety that he launched himself into, and that would give him, depending on the way he launched, he could be ejected immediately or something. Yeah, I this is so subjective. If you got a piece of shit like what was, again, Tony Corrente that fucked us in the Pittsburgh game.
Oh, yeah.
When the kid did the little like Karate Kid fucking kick thing. I mean, just because he didn't like him, like he basically, remember he bumped into him and everything and then threw the flag on him. It's just like there's always an official like that that's going to be emotional and just, and make the wrong call because he's subjective.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. All right. Next one is make the penalty for tripping a personal foul. That's a good penalty.
Well, that could be an accident. Now you're into is it a 15-yarder or is it a 5-yarder? Because maybe, sometimes your center will trip your quarterback. Obviously they mean from the other side, but I'm saying a lot of tripping is usually accidental.
Yes. But I think they want to make it a personal foul now because there's the chance of injury. So many of these rules are based on the pussification of the game. So I hate to say it that way, but I just did. prevent the offense from benefiting by an extension of the half as a result of their foul. This is a smart rule. It's like,
oh yeah. So like if it's incomplete pass and wait a minute, we had a false start.
Right.
We had a false start, so Aaron gets one more Hail Mary. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And sometimes those calls are benefiting, like they throw them to give Rodgers another chance, is what I'm saying.
Yes, indeed. Let's see. This one is clarify use of the helmet against an opponent by removing the butt, the ram, the spear language, and incorporating these actions into penalty on duck, plank, impermissible use of the helmet. That's what it's going to be called now. So when you hear that, it's basically they're removing butt, ram, and spear. There's no more spearing penalty.
I've never heard them say butt, ram, or spear when they call the penalty.
Yeah, I've heard spearing before, but not for a long time. So
this rule is so inconsistent anyway. Like they will call this on the defense, and the running back drops his fucking head and hits with his helmet all the time, and they don't call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's another one of those like help the offense rules. Have all these passed, by the way?
Yes. These
okay.
Yes, the language here is wrong. It was proposed by the committee, but these have all been passed. Yes.
Okay.
Make the penalty for illegal punts, drop kicks, or place kicks consistent with other illegal acts, such as an illegal forward pass. Now, what's an illegal punt? Or I don't know.
I don't know.
Illegal punt. What the fuck are they talking about?
I don't know. Drop kicks. No? Sometimes you.
Cliff. I bet you Cliff studies the rule book. He's got a comment on all this stuff, and he's got a good one here that I'm saving for when we're done with these graphics. But Renewable says butt, ram, and spear. Offensive equals poor language. You're right, Renewable. Why are they changing that?
I heard that in the Stormy Daniels lawsuit.
One of those bizarre rules that we'll probably never run into. And then this last one that I got a graphic for, make the penalty for illegally handing the ball forward consistent with other illegal acts, such as an illegal forward pass. You ever seen an illegal handoff forward? I don't know what that is.
No, I mean, I'm thinking like that play where Tennessee beat Buffalo.
Has left the building.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me? Check. Can you hear me? I'm here. Aldo, I'm here. Can anybody hear me? Hey, Aldo, I'm here.
Dan.
No, I'm here.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. I can't hear you. Yeah, I hear you now. For some reason,
I was wondering why you didn't laugh at my Stormy Daniels joke, because I thought it was good.
Repeat it, because I want to hear it.
With the butt, ram, spear. I was like, I heard this in the Stormy Daniels lawsuit against Trump. Yeah, and I was mentioning the illegal forward pass. I was like, the only thing I can think of is like that play where the Titans ended up going to the Super Bowl when they cheated Buffalo at that forward pass, the Music City Miracle. That was a fucking lateral, I thought.
Nobody will ever convince me that it wasn't a lateral. That's for sure.
A forward lateral, not the legal lateral.
Exactly. Cliff says the rule where teams cut down to 53 on the last week of preseason is a big one. Yeah, I think I want to say last year they had a rule change on that too, where the 53-man roster had to be announced like 2 weeks before the start of the season or something like that. Cliff, if you can elaborate on that, that would help me, and why you think that's a big deal on that. This is Trump speared by Daniels. I don't know. I guess the big rule change there is the kickoff. The rest of them, I don't think we'll hardly know anything. They are watering down the contact in the league, and I don't want anyone permanently hurt. AC says Aldo's laugh is top 10, man.
You'll be glad to know I was watching again an old game, which surprise,
mm-hmm.
but this is something you say today, going back to 89 and the Bears lost to Tampa, like Mike Tomczak had this huge comeback from like 3 touchdowns down, and then the Bears defense, of course, gives up a field goal to lose it in spite of this. But Tampa's coach at the time, God, I can't think of his fucking name now, but he was championing at that time. He said, oh, the officials should be paid full time. He's like, you wouldn't have so many mistakes if they were full-time employees. And he was saying that in 1989, which again is something that you've been saying since I met you. So
yeah, maybe that's why I heard
Perkins. What was it? Ray Perkins was his name, I think.
Okay, yeah, I remember Ray.
Yeah, so I think he coached Alabama before that in college.
Yes.
Yeah, but he wanted full-time officials, and I just thought of, like, I know this isn't what we're talking about, but just think Green Bay that one year when they're playing Dallas and Des Bryant clearly scores and they took away the catch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's shit that always happens for the Packers in all these fucking games. Like the only time they ever got screwed was in Seattle that one year when they had the replacement refs when the refs were on strike. Remember that on a Monday night game when a Hail Mary?
Yep.
But every other call always helps them. Like they cheated the Lions real badly up there at Lambeau on a Monday night game like 2 or 3 years ago. Like just handed the game to Green Bay with a bad call.
Do you think that, well, this is a stupid question because I know the answer. You think that the league goes out of its way to help the Green Bay Packers, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, or Kansas City will be like that now because Rodgers is gone. Now they may be trying to help the Jets now. But they definitely helped Brady and Peyton Manning over the years. There's no way that you can't tell me. I mean, we've talked about this a billion times now. Charles Woodson, who I hated from Green Bay, but before that was in Oakland, and Brady fumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Brady fucking fumbled. They gave them there's this obscure rule that can give Brady the ball back. And that was bullshit. That's when they were 9/11, never forget Patriots. We want the Patriots. We want Tom. I mean, the league has a narrative. And that's not a conspiracy theory when you can like point out plays for years when they didn't like the rate. Everybody knows it's not a Pittsburgh fan that Franco Harris really didn't score on the Immaculate Reception. The ball hit the turf. Jack Tatum didn't touch the ball. And then there was a clip. But because they hated Al Davis and the Raiders, they fucking helped Pittsburgh win.
There may be some truth to that, but there's evidence also that the league has been fighting really, really hard. The NFL has for parity. They want teams to be as competitive as possible and have as many different teams in the playoffs year after year because that maintains interest. The worst thing that can happen to an NFL franchise if they don't make the playoffs for several years in a row because it starts to erode their fan base. And so we've seen parity happen with the way the draft is handled, with the waiver wire, with other things. So I sometimes resist the idea that the NFL is purposely trying to help the good teams in the league because they're trying to set up a narrative with the Green Bay Packers and New England Patriots. I don't get that. Why not the Chicago Bears? I mean, that's a historic franchise where the TV ratings, even when the Bears are bad, are tremendous. If I'm in that conspiracy room at the NFL, I'm slamming the fist for, hey, the Bears deserve to get every break from every official because it helps our TV ratings. Let's make some money, fellas. I just think that
there's only a couple of guys that are the it factors from the league's perspective. Regardless of how bad a guy Rodgers has been in his personal life, well documented, the motherfucker doesn't even talk to his own mom. He fucking destroyed the other man's credibility. His gay lover, he destroyed him with the media when that came out. And point being, but in spite of that, the league has like worshipped this guy for well more than a decade and tried to give him I'm not just making this up because I'm a Bears fan. They've given him breaks after breaks after breaks, and then every year he still shits the bed in the playoffs. He doesn't deserve the breaks, and now at least Mahomes can get all those breaks, and at least he takes advantage of them. Rodgers would just throw a pick. No, against us he wouldn't, of course, because they've always been better than us, and he would throw 3 touchdowns on every time the Bears get screwed against them when there's a bad call.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's in the playoffs against San Francisco or somebody, he's going to fucking get picked off.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, and I'm reading the comments in the chat. I think everybody's
Look at the
making
Des Bryant thing. The Des Bryant thing. Do you know the play I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I remember I called what show was I called one of the radio shows in town. Adam Hogue was co-hosting it as a guest co-host, and I made the argument that rule was fucked up because Des Bryant caught the ball, right? And now he takes 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. His elbow hits the ground. It should have been ruled dead right there. But they are saying that you have to have control after you've hit the ground. Well, he already took 3 steps, so now he's running. He's running with the ball. So the whole completion of the catch thing, that should not take into effect because the rule should be the same as it is for a running back. You've given him the ball. He's taken 2-3 steps. Anything he does with the ball now is a fumble or safe run. And Des Bryant did that. He
Exactly.
dropped the ball only after the elbow.
He's in Green Bay, though, in a playoff game. Hey, I'll tell you another one. Champaign, Illinois, 2002, New England at the Bears, technically at the Bears, even though it's in Champaign. And the late Brian Robinson intercepted Tom Brady and took 3 steps with the ball. And they said that he didn't have control of it and gave the ball back to Brady, and then we lost. Again, the Bears were about to beat New England, but Brady's their fucking hero. So even when he throws picks or fumbles, they may not stand. And Robinson took 3 steps with the ball, and they said, oh, he didn't have control and gave the ball back to the Patriots. It's just maddening. It's like, if you want to be cynical about, again, politically, it's like the haves and the have-nots. The Mahomes, Rodgers people, they're the fucking haves, man. And the teams that are struggling, they're not going to get the breaks. They're the fucking guys that don't have the health care, and they die when they get sick. I mean, they lose.
I guess part of me I'm hesitant to believe that there are these planned conspiracies by the National Football League because it eventually would get out. It would ruin the integrity of the league, and the gambling industry is so so important to the league now. You're talking about billions of dollars lost, and I think that it's probably more unconscious bias. These officials on the field, they're swayed by the crowd noise, by the superstar. I mean, you've talked about it before about Michael Jordan getting calls at other players.
Oh yeah,
and that wasn't because they love Michael Jordan.
98. I'll go to my deathbed saying that was a fucking offensive foul, and I don't even like the Jazz.
Yes.
I don't even think Pippen can get away with that. That's how egregious it was to me. He pushed Brian Russell to the floor, and it's just like, come on, man. I know it's fucking Jordan, but go to Game 7, man. The Jazz are fucking job there, man. I'll go to my deathbed saying that.
Well, I've seen the replay 1,000,000 times, and I don't see that elbow extending, which would then say, okay, that's a push. He had his hand on him, and he didn't do anything I thought to warrant a call. But we can disagree on that one. I just don't want to believe that the NFL is involved in that kind of conspiracy. But again, if it happened, then fuck. Would you stop watching football if you learned that there was some conspiracy and the Green Bay Packers were benefiting from officials' calls?
I don't want to sound paranoid here. I'm not saying that Goodell has a meeting with the officials but I mean, we could go with the Dallas and the assassination right here. It doesn't have to be a huge conspiracy. It could be, 3 people that know. It doesn't have to be the whole league that has to be in on it, and it's still by definition a conspiracy. So I'm just saying maybe the main guy knows, or the main guy knows what the narrative is. This is what I do to keep my job. I know that if it's close, we know who it needs to behoove. That's all. I mean, it doesn't mean that there's some kind of proof, a smoking gun, like a tape or a document. But every season you can look at and be like, oh man, these officials just must be dumb because they make all these calls that benefit like 1 or 2 teams, and they're obvious to most people that they're the wrong call. But it's just like that. That's the thing, though. You get dismissed as a conspiracy theorist if you point it out. And don't forget, it was the NBA official that came out and said that the league wanted the Kobe Shaq teams in the finals, and they wanted the AI against them in 01, and they cheated the Raptors and the Bucks in the playoffs. He wrote a book. What was his name? Tim Donahue?
Yes, he did.
And again, I'll point to that. Game 7. Now, maybe no one ever remembers this reference, but the Portland Trail Blazers trailed 3-1 against Kobe and Shaq and the Lakers. Now, keep in mind, I feel like you're not listening now because I see you doing shit.
I am listening.
Keep in mind, every year before this, Shaq and Kobe's lost to the Jazz a few times. They haven't won anything yet. So they're up 3-1. Portland, they had Pippen playing point forward, and they come back. It's 3-3. It's game 7, fourth quarter. The Trailblazers lead by 15. They're about to come back from 3-1. And in that fourth quarter, the Lakers had like 32 free throws. And they come back to beat Portland because, according to that official, they wanted the Lakers in the fucking finals, man. And it happened.
There is an outstanding documentary. I think it's on Apple Plus on the whole Tim Donahue situation. I think I told you about it. It's part of a series on sports documentaries, and the one on him is just sensational. But yeah, you're starting to convince me a little bit that we should be a little bit more wary about what's going on behind the scenes. The idealist in me hopes that it's just not happening. I don't want to look back at my time as a sports fan and say, man, I was fucking living a lie. I was rooting for teams that they had no chance to win because the fucking officials were working against my team. I don't know, man. It actually depresses me. It really fucking does.
Oh, it is. It is depressing, but I'm an idiot, so I will continue watching.
And while you were talking, what I was trying to do is I was trying to find a picture of Tony Correnti because I really do believe. Here it is. I think I found it. I really do believe that Tony Correnti looks a little bit like E. Howard Hunt. Don't you think?
You should show that footage where he instigates the I can't remember that guy's name. He's only with us half a season. That did the kick in Pittsburgh. And that play, Corrente bumps into him and then he throws the flag. Oh, you can't tell me that's not bullshit. Even if I was watching two teams that had nothing to do with the Bears, just like a random 2-14 team versus a 3-13 team, I would still say, oh my God, the one team is just so fucking cheated there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying this because I was at the game and because I'm a Bears fan. Even the Steeler fans beside me were saying, oh man, you all got fucking cheated. But we'll take it.
You were up in the nosebleeds and you could still see that it was a fucking bullshit call, right?
Well, I couldn't tell at the moment. I watched it on the video board and stuff, I mean, it's not like I was watching on TV because I had a bad vantage point. But yeah, when they showed the replay and stuff, it's like, oh my God. Again, it was my friend Sylvester and myself and again, Sylvester is a Denver fan, but he was there with me. And everybody else in that row was Pittsburgh fans. And they talked to us all night and they were cool, man. Unlike the Browns fans that we experienced. But yeah, they were like, we got away with one.
Okay, so here it is. This is the play that Dan is referencing. Where'd it go? There it is. It'll be up on the screen in a second. What was this? Monday Night Football. You remember the date?
November. I don't remember the exact date. The 14th, maybe somewhere through there.
All right, take it away. You're the play-by-play guy.
There's that fucking kick, which again was stupid. Stop doing it. But where's the thing with the official though? He bumps into him and then throws the flag.
Mm-hmm. So here's the replay. Marsh, who I think was on the squad for only a week or two.
Yeah, but they said, he used to be on the Steelers practice squad. Who gives a shit? He didn't fucking taunt anybody there, though. Neil Smith made a living of acting like he was hitting a home run after he had a sack.
Mm-hmm.
So he did a kick thing. He wasn't taunting anybody.
So after the sack, he does the kick, and he's looking at the Steelers sideline, which
he didn't point or anything.
Yeah, he's just he's not saying anything either. Oh yeah, right. His lips are moving.
Oh, here goes the bump.
No, come on, show it, man. the special teams coach really was pissed off at him. They've got
What I do? He's like, what the fuck I do? Like Mark Gastineau was showboating after sacks 40 years ago.
Yes. What are they going to show the fucking bump?
Oh, what was that guy that did the lights out dance in San Diego? What was that fucking guy's name from the Chargers? It always did that. He did a little fucking thing after a sack. They called it lights out. He was with the Chargers.
Sean Merriman.
Yeah. Merriman celebrated all the time, and you can't tell me that his celebrations were more egregious than that kick. Yeah, but anyway, the official, Corrente, bumped into him. It was his fault.
He moved into him. Yes.
Yeah, and then he threw the flag upon the contact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, Tony Corrente, I said before the game, I texted everybody or put it on Twitter. It was like, oh, we lose every time Tony Corrente is the official. Going back to the Super Bowl, we lost to the Colts.
There it is.
Oh, God. What do you mean? What is he doing? Like, it's his fault. What?
He's moving into him. See?
What the fuck?
Watch Corrente's feet. Watch Corrente's feet. He moves back. It wasn't his feet, but it was his butt that moves back.
The guy that I've told you I hated so much, Chris Sims. Did you see do you remember what Chris Sims said about this when it happened?
No.
He said when he played that Tony Corrente was the most like frivolous, petty official on the field. Like he would whenever he was mad, he wouldn't talk to you or wouldn't wind the clock right. And it was always, you could tell when he was mad at you, but he said that he was the one official that was so emotional that it influenced his calls during his playing days.
Whoa. that
he was just a petty fucking asshole and would constantly make bad calls when he was pissed at you.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's the unconscious bias or purposeful bias by officials that make calls, that make these bad calls. Again, I don't think it's the NFL, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? It is fucking aggravating. And you know, there's been, when Jay Cutler was a member of the Chicago Bears, the amount of times that there were helmet-to-helmet hits.
And they didn't call them.
And they did not call them was so fucking infuriating. I mean, it was.
How many times have we said that about Fields in the first couple of years when he's just getting fucking pummeled?
Yes.
And even the Bears finally fucking complained about that last year. They're like, dude.
Indeed.
But you just breathe on Rodgers, man, and they throw the flag.
Right. And the officials who don't make those calls are then, you know, the replay official should make the call. Let's say Fields gets a helmet-to-helmet hit and it's not called on the field. The upstairs official who is seeing it on replay, just like 50 million other fans are seeing it on replay, should then step in and say, there's a flag that was a helmet-to-helmet hit on the quarterback.
But they can't get a person to make the people they hire, like Al Riveron might as well have been working for Fox and mad about Biden getting Arizona or whatever, you know, like throwing a fucking fit on election night. Like you can't report the fucking votes. That's the way that the officials are.
That's probably one of the more aggravating things to me about football is not only the officials, the replay official, but the announcers in the booth. They're seeing the replay, and it's obvious that there is a penalty there or that this guy did that. I'm watching it as a fan. I'm like, don't you fucking see it? You're running it over and over again. And the announcers are like oblivious to it. It's like so fucking infuriating. You're absolutely right. They need gamers, people who are used to staring into a TV screen and checking out every detail to making Cliff is right. There is a narrative. People who are just really adept at looking at a screen and picking things up right away.
And you got to have a guy that's objective, man. Like you can't have somebody who's like a nephew or an uncle of somebody that's playing and shit like that. It's got to be, you know, I mean, it's got to be somebody that's like, I don't care if Pittsburgh or Chicago wins. I just want to make the right call.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And if they're a full-time employee, like you've intimated, and their check depends on making the right call, then they should make the right call. Absolutely. But there's no accountability whenever they keep blowing calls. It's not like, I mean, they might demote them and not allow them to have a playoff game that year, but they're not getting fired.
Yeah, and that's what it should be. It's like there should be penalties, like even losing your job. How many NFL officials have been fired in your lifetime of watching national football?
The only one I can think of, I don't even know if he was fired. He was the guy that blew the Thanksgiving Day with Pittsburgh and Detroit.
Yes.
The coin toss when Bettis said tails and it was tails and he gave the Lions the ball. It's like, what are you doing? Everybody watching the fucking game knows Pittsburgh won the coin toss, but not Phil Luckett. Not Phil fucking Luckett. And then he was involved in some other crazy play when they made him I think he was the one that blew the Testaverde play against the Jets when he's like 4 yards short of the end zone in 98. And they called it a touchdown for the Jets, and then the Seahawks were eliminated, and they fired Craig Erickson because of it. When Vinny was look, I like Vinny, but he threw for 45,000 yards or whatever and was like never really appreciated. I mean, I thought Vinny was good, but Vinny didn't score that day, and that play was the catalyst for them bringing back replay in 99 because it was so awful. But again, that same official he was connected to all of these plays back then where things were just awry. And before they made him, he wasn't the main ref anymore. He was just the dude in the secondary after that. So he got demoted.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. And I know it's a different sport and it's a different era, but what popped to my head, do you remember the World Series between Kansas City and St. Louis when there was a controversial play at first?
At first base. Yes.
Yeah. And the umpire was in fucking tears when he found out that he made the wrong call and was getting death threats and everything, but he literally thought he made the right call. And it cost St. Louis a championship. And the dude, again, was in fucking tears. Like he's like, I fucked it up, and he couldn't believe he got it wrong.
I remember that like it was yesterday. He totally blew that call, and I remember, I think it was a news report later that night or the next day, how upset that guy was. It's so sad that he was getting death threats. Squeegee! He's going to bed. He's got some testing in the morning. Good luck, brother. Hope everything turns out okay, and you walk out of there happier than hell.
Nothing scarier than going to a doctor, man. So if I prayed, I'd pray for him, man, for real. Like that's even if you just like going to get some of the routine and they have to do a test, or like if you're a woman and you got to get like your breast checked, like because there's a lump or something. That's got to be the scariest feeling in the fucking world, man.
No shit. I remember once, this was 1981. I went to get a VD test because I was pissing.
Aldo's bearing his soul in this one.
I was in Atlanta doing a job, and afterwards went out for some drinks at the hotel room, and there was a woman at the bar. Things got out of hand. I come back, and the next day I'm pissing and burning. Ooh. I went to the doctor, and she told me, yeah, it looks like you've got something going on there. Venereal warts is what I fucking had on my penis, man.
Oh my God. Is that like HPV or whatever?
No, I think it's just like a form of syphilis. And
holy shit.
Yeah, so I had to take penicillin, and it went away after like about a month or two, but it was not a pleasant feeling. I went through a lot of fucking anxiety, you know.
Oh, I can't even imagine. That's like I've probably
Cliff tells me now. Cliff tells me now. Stay.
I was just going to say, I've said this on air before, so I apologize if people remember the story, but Mike Tyson famously said when he won the title, become the youngest heavyweight champion when he beat Trevor Berbick, that he had fucked this woman in a bathroom like the night or 2 nights before or whatever and got gonorrhea. And he said his fucking dick was on fire. But he was so ashamed because, again, he's 19. He's inarticulate at that point. He hadn't become the guy he is now, you know? And so he's ashamed to tell anybody that something's wrong with his dick. So he said that he knew that Berbick took a lot of cheap shots at Muhammad Ali at the end when Muhammad couldn't fight anymore. And he coupled that animosity with the pain in his dick, and he took it out on Berbick. He's like, that's what motivated him to win the title was his fucking dick was on fire during that fight. And the more he hit Berbick, the better he felt about his penis.
That's a great story. I never heard that one before.
Yeah, I thought I've told it on here before. For real.
I think you maybe have.
He said, I was so pissed off, and so scared about my dick, and I used that anxiety on Berbick.
Oh my gosh. Did you know that Cliff was a type 1 diabetic?
No, so he should have some insight for what Jay went through then.
Oh, shit.
On the sidelines, because that's what Cutler had, was at type 1 diabetes.
And I will always believe that his mood was dictated by what was going on with his blood sugar levels. I mean, he could be a real dick on the field, and I have to believe that diabetes had something to do with that.
And when you're getting your fucking sugar checked after every drive, I mean, it would get tiresome. Oh, go ahead and prick my finger again, you know?
Oh, fuck, man. Tell me about it. I have to do that, but I don't.
And now he murders bears.
Real bears.
Yeah, real bears. He like the rich white guy thing where they pose with the dead animal. Like the Don Jr. shit, you know?
See, Cliff agrees with the Jay Cutler thing. The blood sugar levels. All right, let's switch topics here. I want to talk about the stadium issue. I'm no expert in this field, but from what I understand, the Chicago Bears looked to have the property assessed at a certain level so that they could reduce the taxes, the state taxes that they would have to pay. The school districts assessed the Arlington racetrack property at a certain level that would have resulted in tax payments of some like $50 million or 60. I forgot what the amount is. The Bears saying that's unfair because this property isn't going to be generating any revenue. This is a vacant lot.
Constructed.
Exactly. So you're basing that on what Arlington, the revenues that Arlington made and paying those taxes. You should not be applying that for us. And so now there's some disagreement, which has led for Naperville, a western suburb that is really quite a jaunt from the city of Chicago. They've now entered the discussions. You know, they're under a different county, so the county taxes would be different, probably lower. DeKalb County, I think, is where they're at.
Now, how far of a drive is that from Soldier Field to Naperville?
I would say it's about an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, fuck. So, you're way away from the city.
Yeah. So
it'll be the Minnesota Bears, right?
Really, the fucking Green Bay Bears.
Yeah.
But so and now apparently they're discussing things with the new Chicago mayor. Not for Soldier Field, but is there land available in the Chicago area? Now, a lot of people think this is just, fucking bullshit.
Well, you got to have a contingency plan on both sides, whether you're the city or the team.
Absolutely. But Mike Florio, the great Mike Florio.
Oh, boy. Where's Greg Gabriel?
Yeah, really. He was on WSCR, and I kind of agree with one of the scenarios that Mike Florio puts out here. I believe that this could be a mistake by Ted Phillips, who started the negotiations, and that he probably didn't look into the tax situation as closely as he should have. Let's listen to Mike Florio on the Mullion Hall Show 670.
How do you purchase this property at Arlington Heights without some idea that there's the possibility that someone's going to put their thumb on the tax scale at some point? And did they not have any idea? Were they naive? Were they oblivious? Or was there something nefarious going on here? Is there some political force that I'm not aware of that is going to seal off any avenue for the Bears? You go to Arlington Heights, sorry, property taxes just went up. You go look at somewhere else, sorry, something else just happened, Indian burial ground or something. I mean, there's going to be something everywhere they look other than Soldier Field. It's just weird to me. This is the first time that I can think of that we've had a complication like this where a team is considering an alternate site and everything looked good until it didn't. It's either neglect or lack of proper care and foresight by the team, or somebody's messing with them to keep them from going there. It's one or the other. This just doesn't happen out of the blue, that all of a sudden the property taxes become so untenable that you're just not going to go there, unless they knew, and this is their way to try to squeeze it down. Now that this process is moving along, we knew the property tax was going to be an issue, but we can squeeze somebody to drop that amount by flirting with Naperville instead. So, this is high stakes, big money, big business. There's always a story behind the story. I feel like there's a story percolating somewhere beneath this one of either negligence or some sort of foul play.
They're also going to be meeting with the city of Chicago, with the mayor, Brandon Johnson, the newly elected mayor. And it will be interesting to see if they're, supposedly they have no interest in staying at Soldier Field. So if they were to meet with the mayor, they'd want to know where else in the city of Chicago would we be going, because they don't see that as an alternative, trying to take the building they're currently in and redoing it. And obviously they want to own their own building. And that's one of the reasons they plopped down the $197 million to get Arlington Heights Racetrack.
Hey, and more owners should want to own their own building. They should. You get to keep all the revenue. You've got no boards or councils that can micromanage your use of it. Look at the dysfunction between Santa Clara and the 49ers that has existed basically since the day they cut the ribbon on Levi's Stadium. You run the show. You decide who's going to be there, what concerts you're going to have. Maybe you can lure another team to Chicago. Look, there's going to be expansion at some point in the NFL, and I've said for years, Chicago would make sense. It's a big enough market, and if you have a venue there that can support two teams like they have in LA, like they have in New York, why not make that a consideration? So there's a lot of reasons to do it and to be the landlord for whatever it is that goes on. But, you got to find a place where the money makes sense. And it's just weird to me that as the Bears are building real momentum toward an Arlington Heights solution, all of a sudden this rogue wind blows through in the form of property taxes. It's just weird. There's something about it that seems off. And my experience is when something seems off, there's usually a reason for it. And once you start digging, you find what it is.
What do you think about what Mr. Florio said?
West Virginia's own Mike Florio. Yeah, I know Greg would probably rip everything he said to shreds, but everything he said was compelling to me.
Me too.
I think he's probably onto something. Like the Bears are just, all right, we want to reduce the tax rate so we can do this and make them play ball. Or maybe there is someone trying to preclude them from moving. Or maybe it was Ted Phillips, like, oh, I'm about to retire anyway, and let's just get the deal done, and just didn't fucking look over everything properly. Any of those scenarios seem plausible.
I truly believe that this is another Ted Phillips fuck up.
He's had a generation of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe, because it is a little bit maybe complicated is not the right word, but it is a little different in that Arlington, that property in Arlington, there are 3 school districts that benefit from the tax dollars. And so the money that was coming there when it was that property was owned by Churchill Downs was like $70 million, 60, I don't know what the exact figure is. But with what the Bears are asking for it to be taxed as a vacant lot, they would only get $7 million, and that would really, really hurt the school districts. Ted Phillips should have fucking had the foresight to think about this, to think about what the tax ramifications were going to be, and to foresee that there were going to be some tax struggles going on, and that the people complaining are going to be the guardians of our next generation of kids, and thought, well, is this really the right move if we're going to run into this entanglement with the school districts regarding taxes and so forth? Now, maybe I'm thinking too much into it because I have a bias against Ted Phillips and the way he's handled business for the Chicago Bears, namely Soldier Field. I think he botched that whole thing. But I got a feeling that Ted Phillips is to blame, and that's why Kevin Warren is now the president of the Chicago Bears, and he's trying to clean this up. And he's the one that probably said, you guys actually fucking publicly said that we're not looking at any other locations other than Arlington when they close the door on Chicago. You don't do that from a negotiation standpoint. You don't do that. Hey, Ted, get the fuck out of here. Let me handle this. That's what I think is going on. But
you just don't want to have, like, if for some reason they have to stay in Chicago, you don't want it to be like 2002 when they tear down the stadium and you have to play all your games on the road for a year until they build the stadium. That was a fucking nightmare. You don't, I mean, again, in Champagne's how far away? It's not that big of a deal. So, but you don't want to play all your games at another stadium like that where they have to build a new stadium at the same site. You don't want that to happen.
Right. And I agree with Cliff. Ultimately, I think the Bears will build in Arlington. I don't see them, putting the Arlington property back out for sale and trying to recoup their $195 million investment and the money that they spent so far on cleaning out the inside of the joint. But I think that they've worked themselves into this fucking mess because they just didn't have the proper foresight to anticipate the roadblocks that are going to come up. To
me, the analogy is like, let's say they were buying a house and the underwriter at the very last minute said, okay, we're going to give you the money, but we've got to have these alterations completed at the house before. And you didn't know that before. So you're like, oh, I don't know if we can do this now. But at the end of the day, they want to sell the house and you want to buy the house. So you'll find a middle ground.
Does it frustrate you, Dan?
No, I mean, we're just fans. I mean, and the Bears are worth billions. I mean, but I see their viewpoint in saying, well, don't charge me the tax rate of what it would be when we're open while we're building the fucking stadium. We're not generating any revenue yet. So why should we be paying X amount of dollars as if we were making the money? Because we're not making the money yet. So I see that viewpoint, but I also see the viewpoint of the taxes, like you said, are going to fund the high schools and elementary schools, et cetera. So they have to do their part in the community, but there's got to be a middle ground.
I was hoping you'd be upset about it. That way I could put this graphic up.
Don't you think there's a middle ground somewhere?
I do. And I think that they'll eventually get there. Sorry, where are you? Oh, there you are. And I think that they will get there. But this drama should not have happened. Should not have fucking happened. And I guess, every NFL team, almost every NFL team has had to go through some drama when they're working with the states. I'm sure that the Raiders went through some drama with Nevada and Los Angeles with the Chargers and Rams and so forth. I'm sure there was some drama, but this is so fucking typical of the Bears, right?
Hey, when you brought up the Raiders, that scared me because Al left Oakland to go to LA because he was supposed to get a new stadium. And then eventually left the Coliseum and went back to Oakland because they were supposed to get him a new stadium. And then they left Oakland for Las Vegas because Oakland never got him a fucking stadium, which now we know the A's are part of the reason of that. And that's why Oakland the Raiders don't want the A's moving to Vegas now. But still, Al Davis, the guy who was the AFL commissioner and obviously legendary figure, smart guy, couldn't get the stadium built numerous times. So if Al Davis couldn't get it done, do you think Ted Phillips can?
No. So, I didn't have to think about that. No.
Yeah. Or George McCaskey, who I've defended because he's a fan, but like we are, but still, like, fuck. If you tell me that the Bears are inept when Al Davis couldn't get it done, like, oh, yeah, I could see problems.
Yeah. Hey, when we were talking via text a day or two ago, I mentioned to you this thing about a lot of NFL stadiums, a lot of NFL owners are looking at when they're building stadiums now, not building the upper deck because it costs more money. Well, when I found that Mike Florio talking about the Bears situation, he actually brought it up. And so I wanted to play this for you. It's about 50 seconds long.
One reality is this. There's a new universe of cities that will open up because owners are recognizing that upper deck isn't really worth it. The extra profit you get when you look at the revenue versus the expenses of having an upper deck on a stadium. Let's just have a 40,000 seat stadium. We'll design it in a way that makes it look exciting with only 40,000 people. And as long as it's full, it feels exciting. That brings Columbus, Oklahoma City, that brings smaller markets that wouldn't be NFL markets into the mix for an NFL team. And I do think it's just a matter of time before 32 becomes 34, maybe 36, 38, with 40 being the maximum, because they want more inventory. There's only so many games you can play per team. At some point, you got to have more teams.
Yeah, the context of that is David Hall asked him, what's the next franchise? What's the next city that we're going to expand to? The NFL is going to expand to. Is Chicago a possibility? And then he brought up that stadium size, and that might open up the possibility of NFL franchises in smaller cities. What do you think about that?
I mean, we've been critical, and not just us, everyone being critical of the Bears and the capacity at Soldier Field being, what, 64,000?
Yes.
If that's considered the smallest in the league and an embarrassment to a certain degree, like, I just can't imagine them packing up, or not just the Bears, but anyone moving to San Antonio for 30,000 seats. Because remember, I think, was it Minnesota that had to play some games there when the Metrodome Club? Somebody went to San Antonio, and I just can't imagine a 30,000 capacity. I don't see it. Maybe
yeah, I don't think 30,000 will ever
40,
happen.
I'm sorry, 40.
Yeah.
I just don't see that being plausible. Like, there's too much revenue that you're not making that you could make. You don't necessarily have to build like a 4th level upper deck. You could still have it at 3 levels and still have your capacity at 60. I just don't see it. 40,000 seat NFL. You think tickets are high now? God damn. Like we told Heidi, Heidi, the Bears are international. We got Chris Watts coming in, maybe our girl Heidi Zimmerman coming in from Mexico. And you told her, because her thing was like, I don't know if I can afford a fucking ticket. And you're like, oh, I'll help you get a ticket. I don't want to embarrass Heidi with that anecdote, but the point is, the tickets are not affordable now. So can you imagine? Like, I dropped $650 for 2 average seats for us for the Denver games, almost $700 for just 2 tickets for a week 4 matchup. We're not talking about a playoff game here. Yeah. So imagine if the seats were only 40,000. How high are your tickets going to be then?
I do think that in some cities, a 40 to 50,000 seat stadium might be okay. Not a lot of population density, but it'll still be a state-of-the-art stadium with luxury suites, so that all the high rollers will pay $10,000 for a seat in a luxury suite. And the revenue that is now coming from television and streaming services is really where it's at. You know, the revenue that's generated at the game is still substantial, and those 15, 20,000, 30,000 upper deck seats are still bringing revenue. But like Florio said, and I told you via Texas, you know, it's expensive to build that upper deck, that second deck, and because you got to get way up there, the labor costs, materials
look at
costs.
Soldier Field, for example. Not to interrupt you, I'm just saying, comparing it to, like, we were talking Pittsburgh earlier, whatever they call Heinz Field now, I don't know what the new naming rights is, but that stadium, the tallest ticket in Pittsburgh is like double the height of Chicago in that stadium. Like they like in Chicago, you've said many times, the Soldier Field, the new Soldier Field may look like shit on TV, like the spaceship and all this, but there's no bad seat in the stadium. Even if you're in the 300 or 400 level, the tickets you still see good. In Pittsburgh, you need fucking binoculars. You're so high up.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't have to be like Pittsburgh. You could still have the same kind of capacity that the Bears have, and not have the upper deck, but still have 60,000. I think as an NFL, like if you're a professional team, you can't have a stadium where the college has more attendance than you.
With you on that. So that's the stadium deal. Where are we? We're at 10 o'clock. All right. I want to save the last half hour of the show to talk about some of the stuff that we've been watching, either via streaming, regular TV, and so forth. And the new hot show that HBO Max has now put out is the show called The Idol. I saw it the night that it premiered, and then I saw it again today in anticipation of having this talk with my man, Dan Aguirre. You want to set the stage as to what the show is about, Dan?
You want me to talk about the plot or just the overall viewpoint of the show?
The overall viewpoint. Let's start there.
Okay. I think this show is desperate for attention. It wants to shock me. It made me think of Showgirls. Remember when Showgirls came out with Elizabeth Hurley? She played Jessie on Saved by the Bell.
Yes, indeed.
Or furthermore, Kids. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Where it's just it's like begging you to be appalled or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not offended by sexuality on movies at all. But having said that, it felt like this was to substitute for something missing in the show, and they desperately wanted buzz. The Weeknd's in it, and Johnny Depp's daughter, and she fucking masturbates. And it's just like, look, I like shit like that. Don't you? Part of the show, they're talking about her taking a load on her face. Oh my God, what are we going to do? There's a picture of her with cum on her face. But I just felt like that they were desperately screaming for someone to talk about it, to be offended, or to put it over for the sexuality. And we're only one episode in. And I liked it fine. It was okay, but it doesn't have a lot of substance, which is ironic because her character is worried about her pop music not having any substance.
That is correct. Let me take that a step further now and explain a little bit about the plot. This is basically maybe making a comment on Hollywood celebrities like Britney Spears.
Right.
That have been, in the opinion of some, have been exploited.
Or Elvis.
Right. Have been exploited, but particularly female celebrities have been exploited by their managers and the handlers and so forth, and trying to make these young women be sex objects for money. So enter this character on the right, known as The Weeknd. I forgot what his real name is, but he came up with this idea for the show along with Sam Levinson, who is the showrunner, creator of a show that you love, Entourage. Not Entourage. What's the other HBO? Euphoria.
Yeah, I do love Euphoria. I've never watched one episode of Entourage, though.
Yeah. Levinson and The Weeknd came up with this idea, and what has worried people, this based on an article in Rolling Stone magazine, is that a lot of people who worked on the set were really upset with how they treated this young lady and the things that they made her do, and they felt like this was turning into a soft porn show. It was supposed to be about this woman's career and how she was exploited, but they've taken it even further than what the initial scripts. There was a female director for the first who was hired to do all 6-7 episodes that the show is supposed to run, and she left the show when The Weeknd and Levinson started to take more creative control and started to shift the story to include more of The Weeknd's character.
Yeah, and I don't buy his character in one episode. That's my biggest objection with the show. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're talking power here, right? The sex is the power in the show, but the girl is the celebrity. Follow me on this now. The female is the celebrity. In reality, The Weeknd's character is a guy that owns a fucking club. That means nothing to a female pop star. You think Taylor Swift or Selena Gomez or anybody, it doesn't matter, whichever pop star, Britney Spears, even though I guess technically she did fall in love with the dude from a trailer, but for the most part, the pop star is going to have the power. Not the guy that is ubiquitous. Everyone owns a bar in Los Angeles, So if she's not going to be starstruck, he's the one that's going to be starstruck. Mm-hmm. But yet in the show, she's the one that's so allowing him, I can't believe I'm allowing you to do this to me, and like put shit on her head and have a knife and cut through all this. Man, if this were reality, he would be licking like fucking shit off from between her toes. She's the one that has the power here, but yet in the show, because she's the girl, she has to be the vulnerable one.
You see, Dan, I thought the same thing that you thought the first time I saw it. And then when I saw it again this afternoon, a couple of things clicked, that he is totally nervous when he goes to her house. He's like, rehearsing and he's rehearsing what he's going to say. He does some coke and he's like, he's clearly nervous because he's going to go in there and try to groom her. He's going to go in there and try to sway her into being his love puppet, or however.
But she wouldn't fall for it in reality. But like, would a pop star, even if she was going through a sort of a crisis in which way her career was going, because she's overcome some baggage. What was her character? Her character overdose, something like that.
Yes.
So, but whatever. In reality, she's not going to sit around and ask a guy that owns a fucking trashy little bar, oh, give me lessons on my vocals. She would be appalled by that if a guy who is not in the record industry at all, is not a producer, not a voice coach, why would she be listening to his suggestions on how to sing? Because then he tells her, oh, you don't know how to fuck. And I can tell because of the way you sing. He would have been done. She'd have brought some guy in to fuck him up and throw him out on his face. There's no way suddenly she would just be so transfixed by The Weeknd, who's not playing The Weeknd. Let's say that. If he was a pop star, if he was The Weeknd, then maybe. But he's just a dude that owns a bar. That would be like us trying to tell a celebrity that we work for a podcast. They'd be like, so what? Everyone's on a podcast. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
See, I totally get where you're coming from, but I do think, maybe the casting of The Weeknd is the problem there, because I do think that somebody with more charisma, more sex appeal could probably do that to a young, impressionable woman, despite the fact that she's a celebrity, she's had some success in the music career and so forth, but she's really in a very vulnerable spot. Remember, her mom just died. And this is her comeback. She's coming back, and she's put out a single that she doesn't like because she feels it's superficial. She feels that it's not authentic. And he tells her then, because you don't know how to fuck. And she's like, ha, 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 very funny. He goes, really, you don't know how to fuck? And that's when he starts playing this mind trip on her, starts to tell her, do you remember Donna Summer? She sang that, I Want to Love You, Baby. She knew how to fuck. And he puts that red part of her red robe over her head. At first, she has it on like a hoodie. And then as soon as I saw that, I thought to myself, oh, he's the wolf and she's Little Red Riding Hood. He's fucking luring her like a wolf does to a young, impressionable girl. And then he puts it over her head, and then with a knife, he slits that hole in there. I thought he was going to put his penis in there because I've heard all these stories that it was like soft porn and stuff. And I'm waiting. Right. I'm waiting for some soft porn.
I was too. I was ready for the simulated head.
Yes.
But as much as I appreciate everything you're saying on this, pardon me, I got a cough. The one thing I take umbrage with in a small way, because everything you're saying could be right. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying her character is already successful. And most celebrities, whether they're male or female, once they've reached a certain level, they're not just going to come down to the average person and be starstruck or something the way she is by him. She has no reason. I mean, maybe he's wealthy, but so is she. She doesn't need money from him. She's got a mansion. She's got fucking handlers. She's got people. She's had a career already. I'm just saying, I don't think she would allow just some dude that owns a club in LA, and there are thousands of clubs in LA. There's nothing this dude stands out about him that would make her so like starstruck that she's like suddenly his sex slave. I just don't see it. It would have to be the other way around. If the male was the star, like if he was Rick James and it's 1982 and she's just a girl in the bar, okay. But when the girl has the power, she's not going to relinquish that power to just anybody.
That's interesting.
She's the star. She's the fucking star. The dude's going to be sucking her fucking toes here. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't see a regular guy making this kind of impact on her, especially when he's saying she doesn't know how to fuck and she can't sing. She's going to be appalled by that. That was my problem with the show. I still like it. I'm going to watch it next week.
Me too.
I thought it was a little bit jump the sharky a little bit. Like, it's like they're so desperate to like make her, oh, like you said, there's a knife in her mouth now and her head's covered. It's about making the female vulnerable and something about that being sexy. And then actually have a conversation about mental illness being sexy. You heard it earlier in the show. They said, make sure that her wristband where she's in the hospital is shown in the video, because that makes an average person in Sioux City, Iowa want to think that they could fuck her because they ordinarily couldn't fuck her. But if she's got a mental illness, then maybe she would fuck. So having said all of that, that's my exact point. When she does have all the power, and sex in some situations is power, that she's not going to take that step down to him for no reason. I just don't see it.
Yeah, you make a lot of great points. And the only thing that I would say is that perhaps maybe because she is suffering some kind of PTSD because of her mom's death, maybe she's vulnerable now and he takes advantage of that. The other thing I want to share with you is that a little bit of a spoiler alert, but it's something that you're going to learn probably as early as the next episode, is that the Weekend character also secretly runs some type of cult group. And he has them doing all sorts of weird things. That's something I read in that Rolling Stone article. So I don't know much about it, but apparently he has some kind of a skill at persuading people, because he runs this cult group, which could be totally stupid. I mean, this Rolling Stone article and the reviews on this show are scathing. You know, that the Levinson, the guy who runs Euphoria, now runs this show, was just running a terrible set. A lot of production crew people were very upset with the way things were running. But then you have some people saying, no, everything was fine. It's not a big deal. There were some creative differences. Yeah, they started shooting before scripts were fully completed. Yes, the director ran out, but that kind of stuff happens. So it's going to be interesting. After watching it a second time, I felt better about the show than I did the first time, but it's kind of in a precarious position right now. After episode 2, I think I will have a better idea whether this is going to be a total failure or it could be something that people will slowly start to appreciate, sort of like I did in watching it a second time. We'll see.
I don't think it's bad per se, but I think some of it, at least in episode 1, is just for the shock and awe. And I think even her masturbating and choking herself, come on.
She's going like this.
I mean, again, I mean, maybe I'm completely ignorant to what women do behind. I don't see a woman choking her fucking self when she's rubbing her clit, but maybe.
That was weird. That was fucking weird.
I mean, the only way she would do that is if there was a fucking guy watching and she was trying to turn him on. Or a girl, whatever her sexual preference is. But in her own, what's up, PJ? And in her own privacy, she's just rubbing one off and choking herself. I mean, come on. Like, the show is just desperate for attention. It feels like an old Cinemax show. Like, it should be like Sylvia Crystal as Emmanuel or something.
You know what? It's funny because this is like really the first show in that Max rebranding of HBO. So maybe they are trying to bring back the old Cinemax shows, like
Saturday or Friday After Dark. You remember?
Yeah, exactly. You know, by the way, I've had the movie channel for years on my Comcast subscription, but I rarely watch anything on there. And so I'm channel surfing the other night and I stop at the movie channel. The title looked intriguing and I turn it on and it's fucking soft porn. It's like a Cinemax movie. Some girl in stockings, thigh-high stockings, getting fucked from behind by some older actor who looks like you don't want to see him naked. What the hell is he doing in here? Just like a lot of those Cinemax movies were. So now I got something to jerk off to that I don't have to turn on the internet for.
God, that one, like when I was like 13, the one that again from that era that that I probably masturbated like 275 times to it. Was again Emmanuel 2, The Joys of a Woman. And if you want to say the term grooming, it wasn't around yet, but the whole movie, there's a female that's a virgin in the movie. And Emmanuel's so intrigued by it. And at the end of it, the big climax, no pun intended, is Emmanuel and her husband have a threesome with the virgin. And the point, I know it's not a real porn, but the actress Sylvia Crystal has her head at the pussy of the other girl, and they're showing the pubic hair and everything. It's the 70s. So it's like the fur's there, and their fucking faces in there, and the girl's faking her orgasm. I know that, but she's supposedly getting her pussy eaten for the first time, and it shows her face it doesn't show the actual vagina because it's covered by her face, but it's there. And as a 13-year-old, I was appreciative of everything I just told you about.
And you to this day are still into hirsute women, right?
Say it again.
I don't know why I said hirsute, but hairy women down there.
Oh, you mean hairy vaginas? Yeah, I dig it, man. It doesn't have to be, like I said before, it doesn't have to be. No, if a woman's completely bald, I'm not going to be like, oh, this is bullshit, But if they could be like 70s fur or just like a landing strip, either way, I just think it looks. The ambiance, it always seems sexy to me, I guess, because the first couple of women I slept with still had, when I was a kid, had pubic hair. Like my first lady was 14 and the next one I was 16. They both still had pubic hair. So that kind of gets locked into your attraction, I think.
Yeah. And at my age, I'll take whatever I can get, fucking hairy, bald. I don't give a shit. Just give me something. All right. You seen anything else that you want to share with the gang?
Yeah. What was the other thing I was going to tell you about? I've never had Apple TV until now, and maybe we talked about this recently, but I actually watched the first 4 episodes of Seth Rogen in a show called Platonic.
Yeah, you told me you were going to watch it. I don't think you've talked about it much.
Yeah, well, I just watched it since the last show.
Okay.
They dropped 4 episodes basically all at once, and then from now on, they're going to be 1 a week to try to keep you to subscribe. Thank you, PJ. But yeah, if you like Seth Rogen, you'll like the show. It's the same setup, the same kind of jokes that you would normally get. Like there's his ex-wife comes to his bar. He's a brewmaster, and she's got a new boyfriend who's foreign, and he's basically calling him an anti-Semite and calling him German, and he's like, but I'm from Norway. He's like, don't give me in that shit. There's not one person in your family that would be okay with me being a Jew. And it's funny as shit when Seth says it,
Who's the co-star?
It's the lady he was with in Neighbors 1 and 2. It was his wife in those movies, but they're not playing. I don't know what her name is. She was with Russell Brand in Get Him to the Greek.
Rose Byrne?
Yeah. She was Jackie Q in Get Him to the Greek, had all those dirty songs. She was supposed to be a pop star, talking about getting fucked in her ass. And
she was in that all-female movie with a bachelorette party. She was great in that, and she was in one of the X-Men movie where there's this great scene where she's an FBI agent in one of the X-Men movies, and in order to infiltrate this the villains, she dresses up as a prostitute. So for like 10 minutes she's walking around with black stockings and garter belts and a black bra, and they're just like, wow. I'm a Rose Byrne fan.
Yeah,
she's really good looking woman.
When Neighbors 2, I don't know if you remember this, that's a movie with he and Zac Efron. And she comes, or they're fucking, and she vomits on him because she's pregnant and doesn't know it. And she vomits all over him, and then Seth says at the end of the scene, before like the title comes on, he goes like, is it wrong that I came when you vomited on me? So if you think that's funny, then you'll like the show, because it's that same type of humor that Seth always has.
Good. We'll check it out. We'll definitely check it out. I saw a horror movie that was released, I think maybe 2 years ago now. Candyman. Have you heard of? You saw probably the original Candyman that was done in the 80s. I'm assuming.
Or 92. I saw that one, and I saw the one that from like 2021 or something. I didn't see this part 2 or 3 of the original run, but I saw the first one and then the new one.
Okay. So the one done in 2021, you saw that one that was written by Jordan Peele, co-written by Jordan Peele?
I didn't know who wrote it, but yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
I saw it in the middle of the night. I didn't even retain anything, although it seems like Tony Todd, the original Candyman, had a part in it, right?
A real small role, at the end of the movie. Yeah, I really like this movie a lot. It's a political. It makes a political statement, but I thought, most horror movies do. I took a film class about monsters being representative of social injustices, Frankenstein, Godzilla, and all these monsters kind of represent something that's gone on at that period of time that represents some type of social injustice. And in the new Candyman, the one that was made a year or two ago, the Candyman character is basically the boogeyman who is trying to fight the police violence towards Black people. And so I actually started watching it a second time to try to appreciate that part of the story more. But as I'm watching this movie, I just thought it was excellently directed, cinematically wise, by this female director. I think I wrote her name down somewhere, Nia DaCosta. And I just think she's got a really good visual storytelling sense. Like all of the scenes where they're setting up the story of the Candyman, the origin of the Candyman story, that myth, are all done with paper hand puppets, and it's really coolly shot, and everything is just really shot. So I highly recommend it for people who haven't seen it. And if you're not into monsters being, political messengers, there's politics in everything, Cliff. Absolutely.
I'll have to rewatch it. I mean, like I said, I watched it in the middle of the night when it was fairly new on Epix, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
A couple of years ago. And again, I thought it was okay, but nothing stood out tonight as being, or not tonight, but that movie is being something that I would retain, I guess. I didn't dislike it.
That's why I went to see it a second time, because I sort of had it in the background as I was doing some graphics and some work and so forth. And then I started thinking, wait a minute, this is a little deeper here than maybe I'm giving it credit for. And so I read a review or two, and I think it's a really good, well-made movie with clever plotting. And again, the director just does an excellent job. Retro, yes, the Tooch is celebrating his birthday with his family. So again, happy birthday to Santucci. He is 87 years old today.
Yeah, let's hope he got his penis moist.
That's right. All right. Anything else you've seen, sir?
I have to think. I've been watching old Bears games in my spare time at work and stuff.
Well, I got another one for you. This is an old one from 2002. It just happened to be on as I'm working, and I caught it in the middle, but it reminded me how much I love this movie. Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks and Paul Newman and Daniel Craig. You ever see it?
No.
Sam Mendes, the director of American Beauty. He's done some other really good films.
American Beauty was an excellent film.
Yes, I love that film. And Road to Perdition is also a great, great film. It is Tom Hanks plays a contract killer for the Al Capone mob, but directly working for Frank Nitti, his big guy. And so one of the gangsters is played by Paul Newman. His son, played by Daniel Craig, kills Tom Hanks's family, or two members of the family, his wife and his daughter. I think it was an accident, but Tom Hanks now wants revenge. And yeah, Foster, it's a great flick. And so he wants revenge. Well, it's easier said than done. You're fucking going to kill the guy's son, who is a high-ranking member of the mob. And what complicates things is that the Paul Newman character has always thought of the Tom Hanks character as the son he really wanted, Right. And it's really, really well done. Jude Law plays another contract killer who is now hired to kill Tom Hanks before he kills Daniel Craig. It's a great, great plot, beautifully shot, great music. Highly recommend.
I don't even know if I've ever even seen it on, like a trailer or anything. I've never heard of it.
It's on one of the cable stations now. I want to say Showtime or HBO because that's where I saw it. It was on earlier today. Highly recommend it. And there was one other thing I wanted to say about the movie. Just escaped my mind. But it's based on a graphic novel, a black and white graphic novel that I picked up years ago. I probably have it here somewhere. So it's a really good story. Very well done.
You know, a film that I really don't like that I know that you like a lot, and it just made me think of it because you mentioned Capone. And again, obviously, I like the director, I like the players, I like the actors. I love De Niro, I love Kevin Costner. I hated The Untouchables. I thought that was such a shitty movie. I mean, it's so overrated to me. I find it boring as fuck. I just can't stand that film.
There's aspects about the movie that I really love. It's Brian De Palma, and so anything that he does,
Brian De Palma, but
yeah, anything that he does, I find of interest. But I do agree with you that it's not one of his better efforts. The reason I like it a lot is because it's shot in Chicago. If we were to sit down and watch that movie, I could tell you every location that they used for the scenes where they were shot. And there are some individual great scenes and there are some individual awful scenes, like the whole Canadian Mountie thing. What the fuck was that? They got to go to Canada now and fight with the Mounties. Get the fuck out of here. Get back to Chicago where you belong.
Right.
But the scene with Sean Connery and Kevin Costner at the church where Connery is telling him the Chicago way of having to deal with Al Capone. I mean, that's a classic, great fucking scene. And I'll never forget that I saw it. I got invited to a screening of the film before they put the music in, and it still had fingerprints from the editor. There were splice marks and stuff. It was what is called a working cut of the film. So I got to see it before it was done, and then seeing it again. So I have a special affinity for that movie. It means a lot to me.
Speaking of movies that are being cut right now, the movie that I watched recently, and you said you watched it back in the day, that Fat Man and Little Boy, about there's about to be a film. They're just calling it Oppenheimer.
Right.
It's going to be like 4 hours long or something. I saw that the prints in the canister, it's like 600 pounds of film.
Yes.
For them to edit. Yeah. So I saw that. But before I'm bouncing around because I only have a little bit of time left. I also want to acknowledge with Robert De Niro that John Hinckley Jr. is not only a free man, he's on Twitter, folks, and he's available. So John Hinckley, who, if you don't know, shot President Reagan in 1981 because he wanted to fuck Jodie Foster after he saw her with De Niro in Taxi Driver and become obsessed with her and thought that's what she wants. She wants me to shoot the president, which is crazy. And it's crazy that he's free and he's on Twitter and he wants to open for Foo Fighters. So, I don't think Dave Grohl will advocate that, but
no, I don't think so.
And Hinckley's does gigs, he's out and about. He performs. You can buy tickets to go see John Hinckley Jr. I mean, it's if you shoot Ronald Reagan, how can you be known for anything else? He wants us to forget about that. I'm great at guitar, though. I sing well, and I got a good.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Sorry.
So, how do you rebound from by that thing? Yeah, that thing at the hotel. Yeah, that was me.
I have never understood why there wasn't a conspiracy theory with the Hinckley shooting of Ronald Reagan. I mean, I would think that with so many conspiracy theorists out there that somebody would have speculated that Hinckley might have been hired by George Bush, who was the former director of the CIA, to shoot Ronald Reagan because at the time, Ronald Reagan was down in the polls and probably, I don't know, I'd start making things up, but have you ever thought, maybe Hinckley was ordered or paid to shoot Ronald Reagan?
No, I've never. I'm not saying I'm not dismissing your question, but I've never really thought about that. But I do find it interesting that Sirhan, right? You remember the film that they did the remake with Denzel Washington, but the original one was better.
Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, the Manchurian Candidate. And the CIA admitted under oath in the 70s during the Church Commission that they did use tactics like that where they tried to make trained assassins that weren't aware of what they were doing. And that they used LSD and all these tactics. Like, this was admitted under oath. It's not a conspiracy. This happened, in front of Congress. I mean, so given that we know that those are tactics that were used because the CIA admitted that under oath during, again, the Church Commission when they were reinvestigating JFK and Dr. King's assassinations, and I guess to a lesser degree Bobby Kennedy's, but they said that, that they did use these tactics to try to make assassins, to brainwash them where they weren't even be aware of their acts. And for years, Sirhan has said, I have no memory of doing this. If I did do this, I should be executed. But I don't remember it. And I didn't do it. But if I did do it, if there's some way you can tell me I did it, then for fuck's sake, kill me. Because why would I shoot the president or the man that would be president and Senator Kennedy? And the bigger conspiracy theory of that is that the security guard behind him, he gets shot in the back of the ear, and according to his autopsy, that's what killed him. And Sirhan was in the front. But yet Sirhan goes to prison for it and says, I have no memory of this. And the autopsy said he was killed from a shot from behind the ear. So what happened then? The guy that had been the gentleman that did all the autopsies for LA County for like 30 years at that point, they discredited him and said that he was wrong and was too old and didn't know what he was doing because his autopsy didn't match what they said that Sirhan did the killing. So I mentioned this because Sirhan gets pardoned all the time or gets paroled all the time. And then the governor, whoever's the governor, whether it's Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, Republican, whatever, the California governor never lets him out. So we got a guy who doesn't even remember shooting Senator Kennedy. And we got an autopsy that says he was shot from a different angle. All right. And that guy can't get out. But the guy that we know shot President Reagan and admits to shooting President Reagan because he wanted to get pussy somehow out of it, is running free. That guy's running free with the guitar. Look, I don't understand how, like, if Sirhan can't get out, Mr. Hinckley, we know what you did. You have to stay behind bars the rest of your life. I'm sorry.
That is fascinating, Dan. That is fascinating. We're going to do like a special show just dedicated to all these conspiracy theories and stuff. We could do 6 hours. We could do a series of shows. I wonder we can get some of our guys in here. Something that J-Rock, I know you got to leave here, but something J-Rock said, I wonder if he's kidding here. Hinckley Jr. family was close friends with the Bush family. That's got to be a joke, right, J-Rock?
If that's what you were saying, that's oh my God.
He's got to be joking.
I was told that during W's run that he had friends with all the Saudis that attacked 9/11. I mean,
that's true. That's true. Friends, the Bush family and the Bin Laden family had done business for many, many, many years. J-Rock is saying it's no joke. Holy shit, man. I know what I'm going to be doing after the show. Going to be hitting the internet to try to find out about Hinckley's family and the Bush family.
Remember when Bush was running against Dukakis, and even to a lesser degree with Clinton, it was like, he's kind of a wimp. That's what people said about him because he sounded like a geek or something. The man was a fucking World War II hero. Mm-hmm. And as we know, was the leader of the CIA, lied about his whereabouts when Kennedy got shot. He's like, I don't know where I was at. I have no recollections. They're like, but Mr. Bush, we have a photo of you in Dallas on 11/22. Oh, fuck. I forgot that's where I was at.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like this man. And then when Iran-Contra comes around, he's like, oh, I was vice president. I didn't know anything about it. But then he pardoned everybody as soon as he became president. Pardoned everybody. Nobody cared. What I'm saying is that Bush is like fucking Tony Soprano. Bush is like low-key mob, I will kill you.
Wow.
Remember Panama? Oh, you're our buddy. Not anymore, pal. We're coming in because it's going to help me in the polls. So, I mean, Bush is the opposite of like weak, like pencil geek kind of guy. Is what I'm saying. He's low-key badass, George Bush, Herbert Walker.
Absolutely. And I agree with Cliff here. Bush family is part of that elites group. By the way, he's a Republican, Cliff. Yeah, Prescott Bush,
he was selling shit to the Nazis.
To the Nazis, exactly.
Yeah, they were giving the Nazis loans when everybody else was like, they got this genocide thing going on over there. And I don't think we should do business with them. And Bush's dad was like, or W's grandfather was like, hey, man, we can make money with them. Who gives a shit? They want to kill Jews as long as they sign our checks. It's just, yeah, it's not a conspiracy theory.
Renewable asks what happened to the Epstein Island guest list. Red and blue were on it. So, yeah, Clinton
and Trump.
And Trump and Gates and all sorts of people. Republicans and Dems are flip side of the same coin with few exceptions. I agree with that, Cliff, as well. I mean, you've got the senator from Dan's home state of West Virginia. Joe Manchin. Ooh, man. It looks like he's going to be out. He's not going to – is he not going to run? Or
he's going to lose. The governor, who's not really particularly a smart guy, during COVID, he said you should wash your hands and sing John Denver while you're washing your hands. Take me home, country roads. But for whatever reason, he's pretty popular. The dude's huge. He's like 6'8", 420 pounds. I'm not kidding. He's massive. He's tied into that. Where W. Bush was brought here on 9/11 to a place called the Greenbrier. That's where they had him hidden after the 9/11 attacks. And our governor is tied in with that Greenbrier. That's where he got all of his money at. And he was a Democrat who became a Republican, who's now going to beat Manchin more than likely next time. So that's going to he's going to become a senator, and Joe can't beat him because for whatever reason, he's popular. But like I said, he made his wealth with that Greenbrier, which is where they brought W after the 9/11 attacks. That's the bunker he was hidden in.
What's this governor's name? Is it Jim Justice?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, look at this. I found a picture of him and Joe Manchin. Let me put it up on the screen here.
Ironically, Manchin was our governor until Robert Byrd died.
That's him and Manchin right there.
Yeah, he's 6'7" or 6'8" and like 400 pounds.
6'7" and 72 years old.
Yeah, he was coaching girls high school basketball, and even though he was the governor, he was still teaching or coaching.
Another comment that I 100% agree with, Cliff Victoria, the battle is us against elites. That is absolutely true. I think where Cliff and I probably differ is that I believe that the elites are more conservative and lack progressive ideals and want to keep things the way they are. And Cliff said earlier that the communications companies are all owned by billionaires. Why would news organizations and communications be that supposedly are run by liberals? Why would they want to support liberal taxation, which would tax them more? That to me doesn't make any sense. So, but we'll leave it there. Dan, you got to go save some lives, right?
Yep, I'm headed to 911, and I guess so. You won't be here next week, is that right?
I don't think so. In fact, I'm pretty sure I won't. I'm doing a shoot at Raw Jewelers. I'll play that commercial for everybody, but I'll let you go first. I'm doing a special project with Mike North, and I'll talk about that after you're gone. So I will be missing next week's show.
Well, hopefully Tooch will be back from all the fucking sex he's having tonight.
Yeah, and I'll ask Aaron Mikulski to come on, and I'll see if I can get a guest for you guys.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. Love you, and I will talk to you very soon.
All right, you're my guy. See you later.
All righty, brother. All right, that is Dan Aguirre. I just want to mention to everyone that I am working on a special project with Mike North. It is his biography, and I got to tell you, this guy's story is so fucking fascinating on so many different fronts. But fortunately, we got a sponsor for his 5 or 6 part autobiography that's going to be on audio podcast in July. And here's a commercial that I put together for our sponsor, Raw Jewelers.
Hey, Mike North here, and Father's Day is around the corner, and isn't it time to step up for Dad? How about a great gift, something sharp that he can wear every day? How about a Raymond Weil watch? Look at these babies, class on the wrist. and something he'll never forget. Well, we have them here at Raul Jewelers. It's a watch he'll be proud to wear. So let our family take care of your family this Father's Day at Raul Jewelers in Hoffman Estates on Barrington Road. That's Raul Jewelers, family run for 41 years, where you can see the sparkle from miles away.
Raul Jewelers is the proud sponsor of Raging Mouth, the Mike North story, coming soon. I'm telling you, if I was an elite, I would buy one of those watches for everyone in the chat, starting with Cliff Victoria. But Raul Jewelers in Hoffman Estates, if you live in the Chicago area and are thinking of getting a present for Dad, one of those watches or any of the other gifts that they have there would be a great place to stop by and see if you can find something appropriate for Dad. In terms of what we got coming up, tomorrow, the Crosstown Crosstalk is not on. Bardown Hockey Talk is not on tomorrow as Vinny is on vacation. But Cliff, you're going to want to hear this: the series finale of Science Fiction. Cliff was one of the only regular supporters for a while, anyway, of Science Fiction. Those guys did a great job. But they're pulling the plug on the show. The finale is tomorrow. It will air at 8 p.m. Central. I think the Mac and Reed show will be on at 6 o'clock, so they'll be talking tons of Bears stuff and NBA playoffs. Retro says, Mike North, a special talent, an asshole, end of story. Okay, so Retro doesn't like Mike North. I figured you did, Cliff. I figured you were a man of really cool watches. Those Raymond Wall watches, I saw them up close. They're about $2,000 to $3,000. Beautiful fucking watches. I got a Tag Heuer that I bought when I was doing my corporate life, and I love that watch. But man, I looked at that Raymond Wall, and I said, man, I wish I could get one of my kids to buy me this thing because it's beautiful. C Sharp, how are you, my friend? I could stick around a little more if anyone in the chat wants to talk football. Cliff says, I love Science Fiction, but they were all Marvel. Yeah, I think that was one of the problems with the show, is that they focused a little bit too much on Marvel and should have reached out to handle more of the science fiction stuff. I would have loved it if they would have covered, some of the classics from science fiction, the science fiction genre. Anyone in the chat room, tell me about what science fiction from yesteryear do you like? Do you like the highbrow 2001 Space Odyssey, or do you prefer, Star Wars and films like that? Because I think they should have covered all of that. The old movies like Metropolis, probably one of the first science fiction movies that was a visual extravaganza. I would love to have seen chat about that. And another movie that I like a lot that is really underrated, it's called Life Force. Have you guys ever seen a movie called Life Force? It was directed by Tobe Hooper, who did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I want to say it was the movie he did right after Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I might be wrong, but that is a really good science fiction film that I saw in the theater when it was first released. And then years ago, I bought the DVD, and I've been dying to watch it again, but I've been waiting for that right time. Life Force. If you guys get a chance to check it out in the next week or two, let me know. I'd love to talk about it with you here. Foster Cover says that Time Machine original with Rod Taylor and Yvette Mimieux. Absolutely. Great movie. The special effects on that movie aren't as dated as you would think. Yeah, the costumes worn by the monsters in the cave look really phony and stuff, but the time lapse of how he gets from time to time still really hold up beautifully in my mind. Renewable. Aliens, absolutely. You know what? I actually like that Alien trilogy. I think they've made 4 or 5, but the first 3, Alien was the first one. Aliens was the second, which is probably my most favorite of all of them. And then Aliens 3, I forgot what the title was, but I thought that was a good one too, directed by David Fincher. And there might have been the fourth one that I liked too, but I don't remember. But the whole Alien franchise is definitely really good, and I wouldn't mind seeing that one brought back. Mr. Mayhem says Back to the Future. Love Back to the Future, and I love even Back to the Future 2 even more. Check this out, Mr. Mayhem, and I'm sure you've thought about this too. But when I saw Back to the Future 2, at the end, I was like, holy fuck. This is the only movie I've ever watched in my life, a sequel, that the end of part 2 actually changes the end of part 1. Think about it. What happens at the end of part 2 kind of nullifies what happened at the end of part 1. I'll go into more detail on that in the future, but I want to comment on some of these other shows. But Retro's back on Mac North. He's a treasure of knowledge. You were making a joke, Retro. No, but I totally agree with your joke. He is an asshole. No, I'm just kidding. There was another one here. Cliff says, I pointed out some science fiction to them, but they ignored it, like Doctor Who, Battlestar Galactica, and so forth. Yeah, I think they stayed in their wheelhouse, and I would have loved to have seen them bring in some guests to talk about movies like Doctor Who and Battlestar Galactica. AC Adam, the Outer Limits TV show back in the 60s was absolutely great. I remember being fascinated by it. The open was, to me, as compelling as the Twilight Zone open, which everybody remembers, but the Outer Limits open they had these bizarre, sound effects, and the narrator would say, we are controlling your TV set. We can make it black. I'm doing this with my hands, but that's not what they did. They actually made the screen look black. We could turn off the signal, and you see the TV going off. We could turn it back on. It was a great open, and then it was an anthology series. So every week they had a really cool story. Very, very cool. A good recent movie is The Adam Project. It's worth seeing. I'm writing that down, brother. Cliff is recommending The Adam Project. And my wife, that's one of the genres that my wife and I love to watch together is science fiction. So she'll be interested in that. Retro says science fiction was a great concept. I have a new concept, my porn addiction. You know what, Retro? You're more than welcome. There was to come out and do that show. There was a Showtime show. I'm trying to remember the name of the comedian, who basically every week they had a porn star from that 70s, 80s area, and they would talk about porn movies, and they would show clips from the porn movies with all of the penetration and stuff fuzzed out, but it was funny as fuck, and they would share interesting tidbits and stuff. So if you want to do something like that with the Barroom Network, let's talk. King Booker World, The Thing, yes. The original black and white one is pretty good, but the John Carpenter, Kurt Russell one is really damn good. Excellent suggestion there. Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, very good. Who was the guy who ended up being the governor of Minnesota? Wasn't he in that one too? I don't remember, but yeah, Cliff is saying Back to the Future was truly groundbreaking. Toxic Avenger. Foster, I have not seen that one. That's one of those schlock movies that I've always wanted to see. I read a lot about it. Haven't run up against it, but next time I see it, I'm going to, on my TV guide, my guide that Comcast puts out, I'm going to look for it and try to record that because I'd love to see that. Stephen King's Salem's Lot. Did not see that one. I have not seen the old Salem's Lot or Pet Sematary, 2 Stephen King movies from that era that I have not seen. I got to add those to my viewing list. Joseph says The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original version, excellent. Michael Rennie, I believe, was the alien that came in preaching peace. Saw that many, many years ago. Mayhem, you're a man after my own heart. The Terminator and the Terminator 2 are 2 of the most classic science fiction movies of all time. The first one, The Terminator, was a low-budget sensation. I remember I think I was in film school at the time and remember hearing about this movie called The Terminator and how cool it was and so forth. And I finally, I was working during the day, going to college at night. It was difficult for me to get to the theater. Finally got into one of those schlocky, rat-infested theaters, saw The Terminator, and I was like blown away. And then when Terminator 2 came out, and that was at the beginning of CGI and all those special effects, beautifully done, great movie score, great performances by the lead actress, Linda. Somebody help me with her name, and of course Arnold Schwarzenegger. Number 2 is one of those movies that when it's on, I stop and I'm clicking through. I see it, I stop and watch the rest of it. Ryan Reynolds is in The Adam Project. Good time travel sci-fi. Oh, I will definitely check that out. Mr. Mayhem agrees with that. Retro says that the Toxic Avenger was filmed in New Jersey, mainly in Jersey City, so that would explain the title. Jesse the Body Ventura. You're right, Triple R. He was in Predator. That guy, Jesse Ventura, I don't know what kind of a governor he was. I know he was big into conspiracy theories, and I think he did some good things while he was in governor, but he was only a one-term governor. But that guy should have just stuck with acting. I thought that he was a fabulous actor. He could have maybe not achieved, rock stardom, but he was just a good action star actor. I remember that one line in Predator where somebody says, "Yeah, you're bleeding." He goes, "I don't have time to bleed," or something like that. I'm saying this is a badass motherfucker. Foster says The Body. I don't think I've seen that one. And King Booker World says Swamp Thing, the first one. Of course, Adrienne Barbeau. Come on. Anything with Adrienne Barbeau, I'm going to watch. But she was one of the sexy TV stars in that Maude show, and then went on to work in movies with her husband, John Carpenter. Swamp Thing was one of them. Excellent, excellent movie. Jesse Ventura was the governor of Minnesota. Yep. Watch Stephen King's The Langoliers if you haven't seen it. Really made me think. I did see that. That was a mini series, The Langoliers. The special effects on it were terrible, but the fucking storyline was fantastic. Really, really good. That one should be redone with new special effects. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the one with Donald Sutherland, excellent. I like the original a little better with Kevin McCarthy, not the congressman, but the actor from the 50s and 60s. And but Invasion of Body Snatchers, whichever version you see is really good, because both versions are excellent. Demolition Man, Running Man, and Blade Runner. All right, Demolition Man with spikes, right? I don't think I saw Demolition Man and Running Man, but Blade Runner, absolutely. The one that I haven't seen is Blade Runner 2049. I've been waiting for the right time to see that because it's done by a filmmaker that I really appreciate, Denis Villeneuve, I think is his name. So I want to see that. I hear it's spectacular. I got a Blu-ray, so it'll look fantastic on my TV. But the original with Harrison Ford and Sean Penn, directed by Ridley Scott, is a fantastic neo-noir, they call it, because there's all this neon lighting. A lot of it is shot at night. It's about a cop trying to figure out, whether people are real or they're replicants. It's really kind of apropos for what's going on now with human robots and stuff. That one, actually, Blade Runner is a movie I should probably watch again and then follow that up with the sequel, 2049. Good suggestions there, Jojo Loco. Jesse Ventura was a Navy SEAL. He was indeed. I ain't got time to bleed. That was the line. Yes, indeed. Cliff says, Aldo, you notice you have a chip on your shoulder if anyone says a Republican, good and bad in both parties. Unfortunately, more bad than good. You know what, Cliff, I was an admirer of the Republican Party from yesteryear. What's happened with the Republican Party and it being taken over by MAGA and them trying to take away the rights. Oops. Hold on a second here. I think I made a mistake. Okay. The current MAGA Party Republicans is nothing like the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan, nothing like the Republican Party of Dwight Eisenhower, and what's happened now with the Republican Party does really anger me. So, and I try to, especially when I'm on shows like this, I try to not show that as much because I know there's a lot of conservatives who watch the show, and I'd love for you guys to be a part of it. But I can't help it but say I do think that the MAGA party is a danger to democracy. They're really trying to take away the vote of a lot of people, and that's not right. But enough of that politics stuff. Bill Duke is an excellent director. Bill Duke is an excellent director. I don't know, is he still making movies? I thought that he had stopped making movies, but yeah, he was in Predator. That was a great cast in the Predator. You know, the actual monster itself that, from a special effects standpoint, you know, that was just kind of so to me. Cliff, I will definitely watch Demolition Man based on the recommendations here. Oh yes, RoboCop. Oh my gosh. And that ending, you know, you're fired, and boom, he blows that fucking guy away. Great movie. Who was the director on that? Paul Verhoeven, who did Showgirls, a movie that was mentioned in the chat room earlier. Yeah, Paul Verhoeven just had this great sense of style for action movies, and he also did Basic Instinct with Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone. I'm pretty sure Paul Verhoeven did that. He did Showgirls. He did what was that science fiction? Stormtroopers. He did that one too. He was a really talented director, and a lot of it, some people would say, was kind of cheapy, not cheap in terms of production value, but the cheap ideas, sleazy ideas. I don't care. I like that kind of shit. It was fun for me. Let's see. Agnes Moorehead was the grandmother on Bewitched. And what movie was she in? She was in Twilight Zone? Really? She was in an episode of Twilight Zone, or the Steven Spielberg movie? I don't know. Tell me more about that. Cliff says, see, MAGA is a bad word for you. Look at them more closely without the propaganda. What propaganda? They're liars. They try to overturn an election. They ran into the Capitol building. They defecated on it. They threatened to kill elected officials. They wanted to hang Mike Pence, the Republican vice president. Dozens of them are in jail, some of them for sedition. I mean, what propaganda? The laws of the land have proven that these MAGA guys are bad people. So I don't know. I don't know how you can disagree with that. That's actual proof. That's not media propaganda. Those are actual facts that these guys have gone to trial and have been found guilty of trying to overturn the government. And the person who told them to do that is a guy named Donald Trump. Again, I don't want to talk politics. Hey, Mr. Shorty, sorry I'm so late, Barflies. Damn, you can grow a beard fast, Aldo. Yeah, it's all that pussy I get. I wish that was true. The first Matrix is a classic, Mr. Mayhem. I am totally with you. What happens after that? I don't know. And what happened to those two filmmakers? I don't know, because I don't know if they've done another good movie since then. The Wachowski brothers, or now the Wachowski sisters, because they've undergone sex change operations. I think both of them have. And I don't think that's had anything to do with the fact that they don't make movies as good as they used to beforehand. One of my favorite movies is a movie that they both did called Bound, with Jennifer Tilly and Gina Gershon and Joe Pantoliano. Great kind of murder. It's a crime film, and I love that movie. Let's see, what else? I'd buy that for $1. What movie's that from? I think that was from Goodfellas, right, Renewable? But we were talking about science fiction movies. Again, the final episode of Science Fiction is tomorrow. Great news about Jalen Johnson. He is back at practice. So all of that, everybody worried about. Yeah, I hear you. Don't feed it. Don't feed it, bro. Joseph says, Agnes Moorehead was old lady fighting little spaceman from Earth on Twilight. You're right, Joseph. You're right. I forgot about that episode. You know, I sometimes when I go to bed, like what is it, 11 o'clock here in Chicago now. I'll go to bed. Sometimes I'll just find if there's some Twilight Zone episodes running, or go to one of the streaming services that has all these Twilight Zone episodes. I'll just play that and fall asleep to them, because they're comforting to me, because those are TV shows that I grew up with as a kid, and I just love the filmmaking. Cliff, I love political discussions, both sides talking rationally. We need more of that. I absolutely agree with you, Cliff. I can't wait to meet you someday. I'm sure that we will. I want to give you a good big hug, a good liberal hug. You give me a big conservative hug. And I work with Mike North and Greg Gabriel. Those guys are like you, Cliff. They like Trump, and we get along famously. It's these. One of the many things that I hate about what is happening with liberals is that they want to shut off discussions with anybody that disagrees with them or brings up a different point of view and so forth. I will never do that. Sometimes I feel like it. I don't want to talk about it with you, because I sometimes I'll get a little pissed off, but I do know that it's wrong to cut off these discussions with people who disagree with you politically. It's not in the good of the nation. We have to try to reach out to each other. Cliff has to, as a citizen of the United States, he has to share with me all the positives that he can about MAGA and today's Republican Party and so forth. And then it's my duty as an American citizen to share with him in a civil manner what I like about the liberal agenda. And we can find many ways to agree on how to solve some of these problems. And we're not going to agree on maybe more than half of the things, but it is important to have that agenda and then respect the will of the people when a Joe Biden is elected. So I love you too, PJ. I love doing the show. I love the bar room. I love the barflies. By the way, I know some designs for like a barfly hat or barfly t-shirts and stuff. And if I do follow through on that, I'm going to make them reasonably priced, like $20-25, so that hopefully you guys can wear those, because I think that barfly brand would be cool for people to wear. And it's just, it has nothing to do with football or anything. It would just say barfly, and people would ask you, oh, that's cool. And then you would say, hey, Barroom Network, whatever. But it's just kind of could be a cool t-shirt. So I'm playing around with some designs, and hopefully I come up with something good, and then start selling those t-shirts via YouTube channel or wherever else. All right. Oh, yes. They Live is a good movie. Yes, it is. Roddy Piper, right? I love science fiction and horror movies from that era. The David Cronenbergs. I think They Live was was that a John Carpenter movie? I'm not sure, but it was one of my favorite filmmakers. But I love the horror movies from that 70s, 80s, early 90s area. There was a way that they looked. There were, the censorship was relaxed, and so they did things that were much more promiscuous, and some people would say they were exploitative, but I think it was just filmmakers playing around with the new unchained shackles that, if Alfred Hitchcock was alive after the censors went away, and Alfred Hitchcock would have been allowed to make movies the way his mind worked, we would have been seeing people beheaded and Psycho and shit like that. So, but I do love those movies. We should do a show just kind of dedicated to that topic, and I'll share some clips and stuff. Foster says that in the Invaders episode of Twilight Zone, I might just look for that tonight, because I'd love to see that episode again. Anyone out there who has seen the Twilight Zone, is there one particular episode that you like that immediately comes to mind? Mine is, I think it's called Terror in Littletown or something like that, where this couple wakes up in a strange home, in a strange environment, and they're like, whoa, what the hell happened? Oh wow, you had too much to drink. And I remember we were driving we were drunk, and then all of a sudden things getting dark. I don't remember. And so they start looking around in this home, and they're trying to open up drawers and stuff, and they couldn't and stuff. And then they open up the refrigerator, and there's nothing in the refrigerator except a like a fake milk carton. And they're like, what the fuck is going on? And they go outside, and they're like, hey, anybody out here? There's nobody around in this town. And then one of the characters leans on this tree, and the tree falls over. It's clearly a fake tree. And they're like, what the fuck is going on? Does anybody remember this one? I can't remember episodes anymore. It's Cliff Victoria. So they're like totally freaked out. Where the hell are we and stuff? And so they hear a train. Oh, wow, a train. They run over to the train station. They get on board. They're so fucking relieved. And the train takes off. I don't know where we're going, but as long as we're out of this fucking town. And then about a minute later, the train comes to a stop, and they're in the same town. They're back where they started. The man, and so they get off the train, and they're wondering what the fuck. And all of a sudden they hear this giggling noise. And well, you hear that? You hear that? Somebody's giggling. And they look up in the sky. Foster says that he saw it about 3 months ago. They look up in the sky, and there's this huge image of this little girl, and she picks them up. And she says, oh, look, Daddy, I love them. I love them. What had happened is that her dad had traveled to the planet Earth and picked up 2 little dolls for her to play with in her dollhouse. What a great fucking episode. Great fucking episode. Mission Impossible was a great series too, with one of the greatest theme songs of all time. Mission Impossible Twilight Zone had a great theme song too. Anyway, guys, that's it. I've run out of things to say. You guys are great as always. Really, really love it that we could spend some time together. I won't be here next Tuesday, but Dan and I'm sure Tooch will be here, and we'll probably have some special guests with them covering stuff. Don't forget, if you need to find a Father's Day gift and are looking for something really special, head over to Rao Jewelers in Hoffman Estates. Tomorrow it is Mac and Reed and the final episode of Science Fiction. Thank you, Mr. Mayhem, and thank you, everyone else. We really appreciate you stopping by for the chat, Mr. Shorty, and everyone else. But hey, PJ, you still there? Hold on a second before I say goodbye. Hold on, I'm gonna play something for PJ because PJ was asking me about the weather report.
Yeah, that's a great question.
There she is. The weather report, PJ, in Chicago is tomorrow on Wednesday. It's going to be 75, but no precipitation. 76 on Thursday. 82 is going to get up into the 80s on Friday and Saturday, and then back to the 70s on Sunday. So there you go, PJ. That's the weather report just for you. And again, see you all next time.